So that's okay? All right. I will accept the amendment. It's not ultra vires. Seconded by
Councillor Noon.
Councillor Noon. Okay. Thank you. Would you? Well, we can take it in parts. Yes. Councillor Martin's still on his feet, but I will take your comments later. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, the origins of the amendment at 1.4 are simply a recognition that there will be increased patronage. The comments tell us that up to 1,200 people may attend the Premier League matches at the ground, and indeed attendance over the course of the day, which will be for under-18s, reserves and the National League players, may well be greater. And just at the last meeting, and you would remember, Lord Mayor, at the last meeting of the Parklands Authority, it was accepted that there were issues associated with traffic in the area. And in fact, I note that one of the submissions to the authority suggested, I'm surprised that this has not been a major accident near Adelaide Comet grounds on West Terrace on Saturday and Sunday, where the majority of attendees park on West Terrace. So there's a recognition that there will be more traffic, and perhaps a consideration that we as a council ought to consider with the Comets, ways in which we can ensure the safety of all people who attend matches. And that may include the council considering application of speed limits on match days to ensure the safety of those people entering and leaving the ground. It may be that we need to consider ways in which we can assist with parking in the area, and perhaps even, if necessary, some kind of shuttle services. But I'll leave that to the administration. I'm simply saying that these are issues, and we as a council can help in this way. In the final case, it is simply acknowledging again that there are a large number of people who are going to be attending, and it's important that we understand what the implications are, not only for bricks and mortar businesses, and the Lord Mayor would be aware that every Saturday there is a very well attended bingo event across the road involving mainly elderly attendees, but many of whom who park in the area, and it is, I think, beholden on council to consult with them and understand the impacts and try to mitigate them possibly. And additionally, Adelaide High is, of course, a neighbour of the Comets, and if there are to be 5, 10, 11 Saturday matches, who knows, during the course of the Premier National League, it will coincide with School Sports Day at Adelaide High, and we need to understand again the impacts there and how we can assist both the Comets, Adelaide High School and any others to manage such consequences. Lord Mayor, I commend these amendments to my colleagues. As I said, this in no way alters the motion that Councillor Kouros has put forward in terms of approving the process. It simply embellishes it to the extent of trying to assist in ensuring the safety of those attending, all patrons, and trying to assist in mitigating any other issues that arise.
We moved on. I'm still wondering if the councillor was implying I played bingo every Saturday at the Olympic Hall. I think that was his inference. I won't take slight at that. Councillor Noon.
At the council meeting a couple of weeks ago, I expressed my opinion that I really wanted to defer this discussion and divert it back to a committee meeting, because there was quite a lot of questions that were raised with me through ratepayers and through fellow councillors, and that needed to be answered. But I was unable to do that, so unfortunately the motion was lost. But that did not mean at all that I do not support this, because at the end of the day I'm very supportive of sporting clubs in South Australia to
a point of order, if you might keep to the amendments. Thank you.
Well, it sort of gets there because at the end of the day, I put up a motion which is later in the agenda, which is to defer this. But actually, I'm supportive of this motion with these amendments because we can actually progress this, which is what I think we need to do. And look, the reason why it didn't get up a couple of weeks ago was actually
Councillor, I guess point of order, I think someone's rising. Let's just talk about the amendment, but not relitigate.
I am talking about the amendment because at the end of the day, it is good governance process to be able to actually look at this and to be able to actually unpack this more and to ask the questions and to actually end up putting amendments like this included into the motion.
Point of order, Paul.
Mayor, I'm interested to hear about her reasons for the amendments, and that's not what has been discussed.
No. I am actually saying that I
please
support
don't argue across the chamber. I think we know well that we should be talking about the amendment, and you are straying. Can you just?
I'm supporting the amendments.
I think
because we have found out more information about this situation, which has resulted in these amendments.
Thank you.
So that is why I'm supporting the amendments, and I'm supporting the whole motion with these amendments so that we can progress this and that this fabulous sporting club can progress and can actually play league games at their home ground. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think then we had Councillor Siebentrit, then Councillor Lee, and we may go around the room. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Davis. I'm sorry. Councillor Siebentrit first.
Thank you,
Davis.
Lord Mayor. I supported the motion last time it was in the chamber, and when I look at what we have here, I would have thought these are consistent with what the Comets would already be aspiring to do with regards to looking at traffic and parking management, as well as consulting with neighbours. So off the back of that, I have a question then for the administration is, if these two amendments go through, will this in any material way lead to a delay in the project being delivered, and what role would council play in assisting this to get done? I would assume that this can get done in a way that does not lead to a delay, so that's the question I have for administration.
Thank you. A question to
through the presiding member, Mr. Aridis.
Thank you, and through the chair, no, we interpret those amendments to take them in parts. 1.4 would be part of the process of hosting matches, so in no way would that delay the progress of works. Traffic management would be on a case-by-case basis and would be normal work we'd undertake with clubs, but this motion puts that into focus. As to the amendment at 1.7, again, we see that as part of the process in concluding the works and also managing the site post-works, and that's just to understand any impacts to any neighbouring groups, and we still take the balance of the motion to be to progress the works and it would not cause a delay.
So, Lord Mayor, just to clarify, the answer to that question is that there would be no delays to the project as a result of these amendments.
I think that was a response.
Thank you.
We'll move to Councillor Davis, who I incorrectly missed last time round.
Thank you. I won't be supporting the amendments. To me, 1.4 seems quite strange, and I think that the clubs come in good faith, work with the administration around the existing circumstances to put through what I think is an excellent initiative by the state government. I don't like the idea that without a series of complaints or an issue identified by the administration, that we would now put additional bureaucracy or additional controls on the club as a result of their application. I don't like the idea that it gets tacked on as part of the application process. I think that if we received a large amount of complaints or the administration has identified some concern, then sure, that should come back to the council and say we've got an issue here. But to me, it looks like this is almost as a result of the fence issue. The second thing is, in relation to 1.7, and I've heard, I don't support this because I've heard the rhetoric from a number of members in relation to clubs having an open bar and making money from their bar. And the idea that if a club, the club would generate a lot of their income from that bar and from those types of activities to actually support their players and their infrastructure, that's actually taking away from other businesses in the area. And what my concern is despite how eloquently it was argued for. What my concern is the intention of this consultation is to essentially put pressure from a commercial point of view on the club, not only one from your bar, because you need the income from that, but also commercial signage and sponsorship and all of that. And there's been a lot of rhetoric around the wealth of the club and how well they're doing and how much money they're making. Those questions about whether their players will be getting paid and things like that. And so to me, I see 1.4 as a penalty on the club for bringing this motion in the first place, or this request in the first place, and then 1.7 I see as a thin end of the wedge, and I think that it potentially has that outcome, to penalise the club for their existing commercial activities.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Actually, Councillor Siventry asked the question I wanted to ask. I was happy to support Councillor Curious's original motion, but Councillor Martin's amendments also make sense to me. My only concern is timing, how long it will take for the traffic management plan, and also whether there are a significant number of stakeholders that we have to consult, which will result into delay. If there's no delay and we can provide this endorsement for the Adelaide Comets to progress on the fencing, I'm happy to support.
So I'm not guarantee there's no delay. We can be expedited, but that's
is there an estimation of?
If it is a question.
Sorry?
If it is a question.
Can you just clarify? That was the question.
It was a question.
I think it was answered by
estimated.
Do you need to answer again?
Through the presiding member, the administration's responded to the two elements proposed in the amendment, and our advice is that it will not delay the project.
Okay. Councillor Abraham today, the Councillor Martin sums up.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, can I start with a couple of questions, please? Just going back to what Mr. Haridis was saying about 1.4, just so I understand it correctly, does that mean that there will be a need for a traffic and parking management plan for every game day? Am I correct in understanding that? Because there was a mention of case by case, so I just wanted to see if the administration can elaborate on that.
A plan that can be used during game days, but not a new plan each game day. That's my understanding.
So you would essentially have a standard plan. And if I could just ask another question, Lord Mayor, when it comes to these sorts of projects from sporting organisations that have a lease in the parklands, do we have the same sort of approach in terms of asking for parking management plans and the consultation with neighbouring bricks and mortar businesses? And I take Karen Ralton Oval as an example. So when we assessed that project, did we have the same approach as we do here?
I think if there's joint use arrangement and there are leases, for instance, a school, then it's reasonable to have consulted with the school. I don't know if the school was consulted. Then it's also, but I don't believe bricks and mortar businesses are specifically approached, but they may respond to a consultation. I think it's a more open process normally.
Through the presiding member, Mr. Haridis.
Thank you, and through the chair, we don't have a standardised process where on every occasion with development of this nature in the parklands, there is consultation with neighbouring bricks and mortar businesses to directly address the question. There are multiple points of consultation on matters that may result from development assessment and approval processes with neighbours, in the process of engagement on the lease as a matter of course, where we will engage more broadly and go out to public consultation on those leases and the conditions and arrangements that sit within them.
So Lord Mayor, can I just get some clarity? Has some consultation been done on this project already or not?
Thank you, and through the chair, I'm very conscious to get this to be specifically accurate on that. We haven't had public consultation on the 1.1 metre fence as a standalone item, but on the project more broadly, which includes that and all the other elements in previous reports to council, there has been consultation processes.
So then, Lord Mayor, last question. By us, essentially, by this council adopting the amendments at 1.4 and 1.7, are we setting some sort of a precedent when it comes to analysing and approving these sorts of projects?
I think that each case I've seen come before Caterpillar has had amendments over a wide range of areas, and my memory of this going to Caterpillar in November was that each of those conditions was the result of debate and amendment. And so clearly the Parklands approvals require debate and modification, and I recall that each of those conditions and clauses was the subject of debate, so they do tend to be bespoke for each event. Okay,
Lord Mayor, I don't wish to take too much time, but if I can just ask one more question. This motion before us, whether if it passes as an amendment or in its original form, will this be the last time that this council look at this particular item, debate it and vote on it?
Clearly this will close off one episode for the club, but history shows that sometimes new opportunities arise.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I won't be supportive of the amendment. I note the administration's response in terms of these amendments not causing delays. But for me, the reason why I asked those questions was because if these sorts of amendments aren't necessarily needed from other leases, and if we don't necessarily go through the same process that we do with other sporting organisations and other leases that take place in our parklands, why are we doing this? And I can tell you why we're doing this, Lord Mayor. This is a delay tactic. I won't be supportive of this, and I urge members not to support this.
I think we're getting to the point where everybody has spoken almost on that. Councillor Couros, it's your motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, but I rise to speak in regards to the variation, and I'm speaking against...
An amendment?
Amendment, sorry. And I'm speaking against the amendment, and I thank you, Councillor Abrahimzadeh and Councillor Davis, for clarifying a few of the concerns, and obviously Councillor Civic in regards to the delay. My concern is, Lord Mayor, is that we are looking at the completion of a traffic and park management plan, including accessory parking for every match. And we don't have these requirements for any other sporting club. So we're placing them in a difficult position, and we're scrutinising them, which they've continuously, this club has been under a lot of scrutiny from the moment that this new sports club was built there on the parklands. Second to that, the last point I will not agree with, because it's already been cleared at the Adelaide Parklands Authority. I actually place trust in the Adelaide Parklands Authority. We have yourself, Lord Mayor, present there, and you are very much an advocate, and I know that you scrutinise everything that happens on that parklands. So I do trust what you bring forward into that committee. We also had the Deputy Lord Mayor that was present at that is on APLA, that could have voiced his concerns, but it was voted unanimously through independent members in which we received the advice from. These were raised at committee, at the Parklands Authority. These were discussed as you advised, Lord Mayor, so I don't see any reason why we need to bring that in as an amendment to the recommendation which has been through administration and been through APLA, the Adelaide Parklands Authority.
Thank you. I ask Councillor Martin just to sum up for the amendment.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
And with your permission, we'll take the two in parts, if that's all right. Or do you want your amendment in one block?
No, the amendment in one block, if I may, Lord Mayor. Look, I've listened to my colleagues, Councillor Abrahimzadeh, here that there will be no delay, and then reject this on the basis that there will be a delay. I've heard my colleague, Councillor Davis, say that this is about limiting bar sales, or we need to receive complaints in order to act. None of these things are relevant. All that this seeks to propose is that the council should assist the club to ensure that this is a safe environment because of the increased numbers of people who will naturally attend these matches. There will be children, there will be families moving around. There's a car park right next door to the facility which is full of children on Saturdays for Adelaide High sporting events. A closer look at ensuring as best we can that we assist the club to conduct their affairs in such a way as everyone is protected is a safety measure, a prudent measure. And the last measure is simply to assure that we can assist any of the neighbouring licence or leaseholders or businesses which have people in attendance in large numbers to manage any impacts. There will be more people in the area. That is all it's about. Nothing that is in that motion, including the amendments, will stop what is being proposed. That is that the approval of the proposal from the Adelaide Comets will go ahead. A few measures to assist in safety and trying to minimise the impacts in the precinct are all measures that will ensure not only the success of this proposal, but its popularity among all in the precinct. I ask members to endorse this. This is the green light to the Adelaide Comets.
So I'll take that 1.4 and 1.7 as one amendment and ask all those in favour.
Sorry, can we do that in parts? Sorry, Lord Mayor, are we doing that in parts?
No, Lord Mayor, I asked for the whole amendment to be put,
yes,
not parts.
1.4 and 1.7 is the amendment.
So, no, I'm asking for the whole motion to be treated as an amended motion.
I'm not sure that we can do that. We have to vote on the amendment, I believe. I'm sorry?
It's an amended motion, Lord Mayor?
Was moved and that's still before the chamber. So my understanding is that we must now vote on the amendment first and then it will become part of the motion. Then if we want to take that in parts, we can take it in parts. My ruling. Thank you. So let's vote on the amendment. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The amendment and against? That's lost. I'm sorry? A division's been called. And I'll ask those in voting in favour to rise.
Members, a division has been called on the amendment, which was 1.4 and 1.7. Please rise in favour of the amendment until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Siebentrop, Councillor Giles, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Martin. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now revert to the motion as moved. Does anybody else want to speak? I think we know how we're going to vote now, don't we? So Councillor Giles hasn't spoken yet. No, you haven't, but Councillor Giles has not spoken. I've caught the call, has gone to Councillor Giles.
This is a substantive motion, I'm just checking. Yep, okay. I'm rise to say will not be supporting this motion. And these are the reasons. When clubs request to lease space in the Adelaide Parklands, there's an understanding that that space is very special and different to other spaces in this state. The Adelaide Parklands have National Heritage status and go right back to the initial plan of Colonel William Light, where Colonel William Light said that the land around the city square and North Adelaide will be allocated as parklands. Our council has responsibilities to protect open, accessible green space, not only for our residents within the within our city, but also for all the people of South Australia. In the west of the city, we know that for our own planning as a council, that there may be more around 1,800 additional people in the next 10 years that will be moving into that part of the city, and that part of the city is already being substantially developed and developed quite rapidly. So we need all the open space that we can get. There's less open space in the West Parklands part of the city than in any other part of the Parklands. We have a large area used for large used for netball. We have a safe space for people to camp if they're visiting the city. We have the West Terrace Cemetery. We have the South Australian Cricket Association, which is, in my view, ridden roughshod over the principles behind the Parklands and created all sorts of structures which, if that went today to our council, I personally would have real problems with it, particularly in relation to parking. We now have the looming new hospital, which will knock out another whole part of the western side of the city. And this is at a time too when the whole of the west of the western suburbs is also developing, with a large amount of people moving into housing in that inner western suburbs. So this is not an unusual thing for a council to think about all of that when we're talking about structures. And it may seem like a small structure, but it's a principle where we want to sit down and get everyone to understand that we need to maintain open access, green space for everybody, and not set up a precedent where people can actually think that the needs of a sporting club override every other need. We need to balance those needs as a council, and that is our job. So please don't. You have additional work? Please don't interpret my opposition as being anti-sport. Please don't interpret my opposition as being about not supporting the Comets soccer club, because I do. I'm a sporty person. I have been all my life. I understand all this about why a club needs to move as quickly as they can and in a productive way into the highest levels of their own competition. But all I'm asking for is that don't rush this through tonight. I'm opposed to this because it's just basically discounting all the questions that I've been asked by email from other residents who actually support open green parklands, and it doesn't enable us to have any further discussion around questions around parking on the parklands or any other matter that we may have been able to discuss in the committee. So. Yeah, and the final thing I want to say is that we don't say yes to every sporting organisation. The Lutheran Sports Association and Park 21 West, we knocked that proposal back, and now they are sitting down with us working through some of the issues, and we'll come back with an alternative proposal. So it's not as if we're opposed to stuff for the sake of it. I just want people to know that we are doing our job as a city council with a heritage protected parkland surrounding our city, and that's what I was elected for, and that's what we should be doing.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I concur with Councillor Giles. And I'm just disappointed because I don't think anyone in this chamber wants to see the Comets suffer. I think everyone in this chamber wants to see the Comets thrive, but every attempt that I've made and others have made for compromise or for discussion has been, including in this very chamber moments ago, have been shut down. I mean, we've literally had a majority in the chamber just shut down investigating, having proper investigation on parking, which I think is shocking. Shocking. I cannot believe what just occurred, to be honest. So I'm very, very disappointed with where we're at. I am prepared to support various aspects around supporting the Comets, but I can't support this motion because there has been no proper compromise, there has been no proper discussion. We've literally recycled the same motion from 2 weeks ago without going back to committee, without going back to Caterpillar. I also want to say, and I apologise if this is out of order, but I also think, in my personal opinion, that Caterpillar was not given, and the committee was not given all the information that we now have access to, So So I would like to, go back to committee, have a proper discussion about this. I realise this has been shut down and this has been rammed down our throats. So, I have no choice but to vote against this on that basis. Yeah, and I'll also say 5-to-1 emails I've had from residents have been supporting, either opposing this or supporting a compromise or further discussions, be it a retractable fence or what have you. So the residents, the vast majority of residents that I've talked to that have emailed me want a compromise, want to support sports, want to support the Comets. This isn't compromise.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I apologise, I missed you on the last round. I think that we might as well do the whole Monty round here and just get everybody.
Look, my view on the parklands is use it or lose it, right? We saw that with the hospital. If you have an area of the parklands which isn't used, then they start building on it. We've seen a massive erosion of our parklands in history, right? When we upgrade things, we put in wetlands, like in my ward, in South Ward, when we get people going there, we see the importance of it. But even around Park 21 West, when they were looking at relocating the horses, they wanted to put it down in the shrubland down at in South Ward again because they perceive that as something that isn't being used. Now, if the Premier tried to build a hospital where the Comets Football Club is, he would see that there are a lot of people who actually use it. And they would be a standing army to defend that space against any kind of further encroachment or development. And that's the way that I think we need to develop to protect our parklands going forward. Now, this council waxes lyrical about stronger communities. Well, I see a very, very strong community over there, and they're spilling over into it. And we saw the community outcry and the importance that this decision has on that community in the media, played across and in Facebook comments everywhere. When we talk about communities in Adelaide, we're talking about clubs like this. When we have a situation where we have massive mental health issues, massive loneliness issues, depression and suicide, all I see in the gallery is a lot of very happy, healthy and very tanned people who are clearly engaged with the community and who live happy and healthy lives together. And they have a community around them who have that support. These are the types of communities that we should be building, that we should be supporting. And for this council, it's not about the amendments that were put previously. The entire discussion was about this 1.1 metre high fence at the last council meeting. That was the major issue. And now some councillors, I think, are backflipping because the Premier correctly comes in and calls us absolutely crazy to not accept state funding to further improve our infrastructure in the parklands. I do think that the sporting clubs play an extremely important role. They are our communities. They are the people that use the parklands en masse every single weekend, get out and support each other, support their mates, whether they're young and old, their parents can get together. That's the type of thing we need to support. It doesn't take away, though, from people passive recreation in the parklands as well. That is just as important as our sporting groups. But I say, if we don't use it, we will lose it.
Did you want to speak?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I will be brief, and I'll indicate from the beginning of my comments that I do support this motion and I will be voting in favour of it. I would have liked to have support parts of the amendment, but unfortunately it was not taken in parts. As reports have consistently shown on other projects of this nature that local businesses, bricks and mortar in the city are not significantly or substantially affected by these kinds of projects. The people that are visiting the stadiums, the club rooms to purchase a drink are coming into the city for a completely different reason than someone who's coming in to our restaurants, bars and cafes. So I think we can fairly reasonably rule that out as mutually exclusive reasons to visit the city. However, I will take issue with the fact that if we use it, or if we don't use it, we will lose it, because the parklands are in constant use all the time, for all time, because nature is a very valid land use. And really what some of the issues that have been raised by council is about balancing those land uses. It is perfectly reasonable for council to advocate for the protection of natural landscapes. It is entirely reasonable for members of this council to advocate for the protection of remnant woodlands and grasslands there. There doesn't need to be a kiosk on every single park for it to be worth protecting. There is absolutely space for sporting grounds, but that doesn't mean we need to say that every single park should have a sporting ground to the exclusion of all other land uses. And in fact, I think the Comets, to their credit, have done a fantastic job of incorporating more nature into this project, again, through the recommendations and through the advice of Cattle Tiller. Those land uses are not mutually exclusive, contrary to some of the claims of previous speakers. I will say it would have been a sensible inclusion to have a parking strategy as part of this, because it is going to be an increasing hive of activity, and really this is about parklands, not car parklands. And through the term of this council, we have consistently said we don't want to see more incursions of cars on our parklands. I think that's a perfectly valid way, again, for us to make sure that us as council, as custodians of the parklands, are fulfilling our obligations to the community and to the parklands itself, to make sure that parklands are park spaces, so it can be a natural space, so it can be a playing ground, not a car park. And also making sure that there is a process in place that protects the Comets from breaches of their lease terms. Not to say that there has been, or not to say that they are doing so, or they plan to do so. It is always good for a club as active as this to have a safeguard and a process in place. It sets up continuity so that when the reins eventually change hands, the next person coming into the CEO role or to their operations manager role has a way to manage those kinds of processes when they have such a large and active club. But as I said at the beginning of my comments, I will be supporting this and would have liked to have seen some of the inclusions of the amendments.
Thank you. I think that I don't know if Councillor Abrahimzadeh wants to speak, or if we could just sum up with Councillor Noon, Councillor Kouros. I'm sorry. You could sum up. You don't want to. You could. Councillor Abrahimzadeh, and
thank you, Lord Mayor.
Yes.
Lord Mayor, I do have some concerns about about some comments that were made by the Deputy Lord Mayor about some information that have recently been made available. Can I just get some clarity? Has there been any new information distributed since, be it the Parklands Authority meeting or the committee meeting or the past council meeting that took place 2 weeks ago? Has there been any new information released since then?
I feel there's been a bit of hearsay and some views have been expressed, but I haven't had any new information from the administration.
So has this chamber then been misled with those comments being made, that there's been new information that's been made available?
I can't interpret what members say, but I understand the Deputy Lord Mayor meant that he's learnt things he didn't know previously.
Okay. Okay. Well, Lord Mayor, I rise to support this this motion, which, in my opinion, should have been adopted by this council 2 weeks ago. But better late than never, they say, Lord Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Kouros and the ACFC for the work that they have done in bringing this recommendation back to this chamber, and essentially not making this council look like what some ratepayers have described to me as NIMBYs and naysayers. So I do thank Councillor Kouros and the ACFC for their work. Lord Mayor, there's been a lot of views that have been put forward, but what I would like to say is that this particular proposal has been through the Parklands Authority. It was supported unanimously. It did come through a committee where, again, it was supported unanimously. It came through a council meeting following that committee meeting where, unfortunately, members had a change of heart for one reason or another. But what I would like to say is that I'm actually very glad that we now have come to a head where 2 years or so worth of work by the committee, their volunteers, our own staff, our own council staff that have spent so much time and have put so much effort and energy into this for us to hopefully, once and for all, deal with this, close this chapter and move on so that the club can get on with their business. Members, what we have before us is essentially an important piece of work for the community. Let's bring it back to the community. I mean, look at this community. We're only seeing a portion of the community, not seeing the overspill and the rest of Town Hall. But let's bring it back to the community. Here in the public gallery, Lord Mayor, we can see a number of children. Now, what we saw a little while back with the Matildas and the World Cup, that captured hearts and minds. Who are we to stop some of these hopes and some of these dreams of some of these kids who want to go and play for the Socceroos, who want to go and play for the Matildas? Who are we to essentially stop or be a barrier in them achieving their hopes and dreams? So, members, I do commend this to the chamber.
Thank you. I won't be calling Councillor Noon to speak because I'll remind her that she moved or seconded an amendment, and according to our standing orders, that means that she's no longer allowed to speak to the motion because she's interpreted as having spoken with the motion. Councillor Siebentrit, then I'll move on to Councillor Couros to sum up.
I'll be very brief, Lord Mayor. I did support this motion last time and I intend to do again. One of the things that's intrigued me, and perhaps I shouldn't have been surprised, is how much interest there has been in this motion since we gathered here last time. And some of the discussion I had was with residents and community members out by the side of a sporting ground in the parklands, whilst young people were training for cricket and training for soccer. And one of the things that I reflected on as I was walking away from that evening is not only was there an ability to support those young people be fit and healthy and have positive relationships with one another, but they were also engaging with nature, they were also connecting with the parklands, and in many ways they may end up being our future parkland warriors. And when we look into the gallery this evening, I suspect some of our future advocates for the parklands may very well be here with us. However, there are 2 points that I wanted to draw attention to try and bring some balance to which I believe has been an at times unbalanced debate here. One of them is that there's been suggesting that this council is in some way anti-sport or anti-community wellbeing. I think that could be further from the truth. You only have to step out of the parklands here, and whether you bump into a set of cricket nets or football ovals or soccer ovals or tennis courts, you know where I'm going. There are plenty of sports and recreational activities that we support actively support as a council across the parklands. So we are very much in favour of sport and community wellbeing. But on the flip side of the argument is that I've received many emails suggesting that in some way this fence is pro-development. For me, it can't be anything further from the truth that this is pro-development. It is a fence that, when it is not being used, or there is a fence here 1.1 metres high. When it is not being used, we've been reassured that it will be open for people to access. So I think there have been arguments put on both sides that haven't necessarily always got to the heart of the issue. And my final reflection is that what we've seen in this chamber really is our attempt to balance up what are, at times, they might seem trivial, but they are at times complex environmental and social issues. And I do believe that in this debate we've been here doing what ratepayers expect us to do.
Thank you. I'll now ask Councillor Couros if she'd like to sum up. Could I just, in passing, apologise to the administration for implying that they had kept something secret? I didn't mean to do that. I don't believe that we meant that some information was confidential or not made apparent. I would just say that there is also some interpretation around that this has been before Council for 2 years. I think it's fair to say that the members of Council didn't know about this application. This Council didn't know about this application until about 3 weeks ago when it came into the first part of the committee system. It may have been being dealt with, but I think that it sometimes helps to be aware of what's in the pipeline rather than being surprised by it. Sorry, Councillor Couros, please sum up.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for the clarity of some of those items there. I just want to thank the youth that are in our gallery today. They've been very quiet and listening attentively, and I'm hoping they've taken on board the value of the parklands. And I'm also hoping that we've taken on board the value of the youth using the parklands. This 1.1 metre high fence will be open to the public will always be accessible. We have to be mindful of the fact that there are a lot of enclosures for safety reasons in the parklands. We've got horses that are fenced off. We've got dog parks that are all fenced off. We have hockey clubs. We have tennis courts that are fenced off. We have a numerous amount of sporting facilities that are fenced off for safety reasons. And let's be mindful, this is exactly what this fence is about. It's about safety. It's about keeping the players safe. And that's what we should be considering as a council, whether that is feasible and whether that is a requirement. And we have got all the advice that we have required from administration and the advice that we received from the Adelaide Parklands Authority in regards to this fence being the use of it and it being open to the public. I also take on board Councillor Giles' comments, and yes, there seems to be buildings that are creeping up on the parklands, and a lot of them we have opposed, Lord Mayor. A lot of them we have written to state government and we have opposed and we have voiced our concerns, but at the end of the day, it is their right as a government to choose to override us at times through whatever means. But in looking at that, we have a government house on the parklands, we have an Adelaide Festival on the parklands, we have a university on the parklands, all that were done, government house on the parklands, all that were done hundreds of years ago. And we need to ensure that we maintain less buildings on the parklands, but this is not what it's about. We are talking about a fence that can be used by the youth, by a club, and I think that this council needs to stop reflecting on the clubs, but should be reflecting on the clubs as a benefit, not as a negative on our parklands. And that is what the message that we're sending to our youth today and for the future.
I just suggest we take this on block as its entirety. I think we know how we're going to vote. All those in favour? All those against? And I think a division will be called. Division's been called.
Members, a division has been called on item 7.1. Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Ho, Councillor Kouros, Councillor Lee, Councillor Siebentrip, Councillor Davis and Councillor Abraham Zadeh. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we seek leave of the meeting just to have a 5-minute adjournment? I'm sorry, that was carried, obviously. Seek leave to have a 5-minute adjournment so we can just wait for the gallery to leave. I'm sure they don't want to stay for the whole of the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
in case of death or injury. If a rider is reckless or careless, they're responsible for injuries caused to others. Now here's where it gets tricky and dodgy. Some e-scooter operators exclude liability except where it is caused by their negligence. Councils could be liable if an accident occurred due to a damaged pavement or road, but it would need to be proven that the council had breached its duty of care by not making the repairs. The same persons who might trip over a scooter that has been dumped on the footpath, the same for persons who might trip over that have been dumped on the footpath. I've spoken to constituents badly hurt from tripping over scooters strewn on city streets, but were unable to get any form of compensation either from the operator or the council. Visually impaired are frustrated at having to avoid being hit or sidestepping those parked alongside traffic lights at pedestrian crossings, preventing them from accessing the buttons. As Gian Casper and Brown point out, it is much harder for third parties who are injured because only parties to a contract can incur rights and obligations under the contract. So if you hit or trip over one, you have no contractual rights against the company. Also, many riders are unaware, or do they read the fine print of the contracts via an app? These agreements are long and complex pieces of legal mumbo-jumbo. Do riders really take any notice of them? No, and the operators know this. This must be fixed. By extending this trial, this council continues to place third parties at risk without any hope of getting compensation. Councils have an obligation and a responsibility to them. There is no uniformity in their use by minors. Some refuse to allow them, others allow over 16 with parental consent. Yet many adults would be unaware of clauses which void insurance entitlements if an unauthorised minor is injured or a rider wasn't wearing a helmet at the time. You also don't need to have a driver's licence, even though you might travel on a road with it. It isn't a push bike, it's a powered motor vehicle under Australian road rules. And in closing again, why would you extend this trial when these alarming loopholes exist? Thank you, I nearly finished, Lord Mayor. Again, why would you extend this trial when these alarming loopholes exist that can result in massive medical and legal bills, as well as exposing councils to litigation? Your priority must be a duty of care for every member of the community, not just the interests of these e-scoot operators, or because they're cool-looking modes of transport. The message you need to send the Minister before anyone else is hurt or killed is show us what your legislation will do and how it can protect users and third parties. Thank you for listening.
Can I thank you very much? With the leave of the meeting, we could bring forward item 7.4 from the agenda item 13. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, members. So could I ask if somebody would move the motion for 7.4 following the representation? Thank you, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As Chair of the Infrastructure and Public Works Committee, I'm very happy to move this item. And I will say that I am supportive of the extension, in part because there is absolutely no sense in ending this trial when we're just going to have to reintroduce them in a few months' time anyway. Every indication is that this legislation will be introduced by the middle of this year and will be resolved either at the end of this year or by the end of this year or early next year. That's shorter than the amount of time that we're providing for this 12-month trial. It may be the longest trial in the world. That's not council's fault. That's certainly not anyone using a scooter's fault. That is the responsibility and the purview of the state government. And we have been cooperative as best that we can to make sure the trial is as successful as possible. And we continue to regularly engage with the e-scooter operators to make sure that all the safety concerns that are regularly raised here are addressed. And they have been incredibly compliant. They've been incredibly acquiescent to our requests. You could not get a better party of people to work with in terms of addressing the safety concerns. The trial does extend only to the commercial operators. It doesn't extend to private scooters, which are still not allowed in South Australia. And the indications, again, are that those scooters will be brought down to having an enforced 15-kilometre speed limit, unlike the current 25-kilometre speed limit for the privately available ones, which would make it safer. However, the feedback from users, both on the path, walking, people on scooters, on bikes, scooters don't want to be on the footpaths. Everyone says we'd like to be in the bike infrastructure. However, our persisting problem in Adelaide is that our bike infrastructure is such a low quality and so inconsistent, there are very few alternatives for people to ride into, again giving impetus to actually implement that infrastructure. The enforcement is ongoing. While the police have turned a bit more of a forgiving eye to e-scooters, they consistently target vulnerable road users as part of what they call Operation Vulnerable, where they target specifically pedestrians, cyclists and e-scooter riders, reminding them of their obligations towards their own safety, forgetting that almost all the dangers to those vulnerable road users are actually the people driving cars. So I'll point out that no form of transport is exempt from non-compliance or negligence, but the consequences for that behaviour is completely different between the modes. I'll point out a very few quick statistics. In 2023, our worst year to date for road deaths, 14 pedestrians were killed in South Australia, most of them in metropolitan Adelaide. Guess what killed all of them? It was cars, it was motorists. Not a single e-scooter killed one of those people. There were 8 cyclist deaths, 7 of them in metropolitan Adelaide. The data is a lot less detailed on this from SAPOL because they just say fell from bike, but we don't know why they fell from their bike. I just request a brief extension, Lord Mayor. Thank you. At least one of those deaths was confirmed to be being hit by a ute. That was out in Port Pirie. One person came off their bike and died as a result of an infrastructure failure because it was of such poor quality design. But we don't know why the rest of them fell. But as we go through the statistics, there's still not one instance during the time of this trial or even through our worst year for road deaths of a single scooter causing anyone's death, and we have only 14 instances of hospitalisation over the last 2 years of our trial, and it seems that more than half of those were just the scooter rider causing some trouble for themselves. So in less than half of the instances of the last 2 years, for half of the trial where there has been injuries, more than half of them have only involved the scooter. I think that's a pretty good track record in terms of safety, especially compared to what we're dealing with our car-dependent transport system. So I'm very pleased to endorse this as the chair, but also as an active transport advocate, and I seek the support from my colleagues.
Yeah, just quickly. Thank Councillor Elliott for his discussion on it. I thought that was very well put. I do think, though, that I believe we actually had a deputation of somebody who'd actually been hit by a scooter and she'd been seriously injured by the scooter. And I think the issue was that the person not wearing a helmet voids the insurance. I do think that needs to be not anymore, right? And so, in my mind, that is something we can address through the trial. I'm hoping that they will legalise it and put it through. I particularly think that it should be personal e-scooters as well. You should be able to use them if we want to have I think it absolutely contributes to a greener city and the ability to get around. I have used a scooter in a very silly way and completely axed myself. And so now I've got a scar on the inside of my lip, and that was purely my fault. And so I do think that it's very much down to the individual users. And I can assure you I'm much more steady the next time around. But I think that they're an excellent thing. I use them all the time getting around the city, not just during Fringe or during the warmer months, but also during the cooler months as well. So I think this is something we should continue, and there's some challenges there, but I hope the state government will bring through that legislation soon.
Deputy Lord Mayor and then Councillor Giles.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I've got an amendment, and I'd seek to make Part 2 Part 3, and then create a new Part 2, which would be request administration work with e-scooter operators to bring in designated parking bays at the earliest opportunity.
I think that's already in the...
I want it in writing, though, Lord Mayor, because it's 4 years now we've been harping on about this, I think. And
Can I just clarify this? This is, can only be put in place when the funding matches the lease or licensing. Because the operators are not going to invest in infrastructure on the street, and we're not going to pay for infrastructure on the street unless there is a continuation of their capacity to make money from it. I think this is, can I just ask for clarification? I may have misunderstood. And whilst I'm speaking from the chair, can I also say, to correct Councillor Davis, and he may not have been at the meeting where it was discussed at great length, that there is now insurance in place from both operators which voids the necessity to act within the regulations or the guidelines or the agreement, and there's a sort of no-fault clause for all hired scooters. Can I have some advice about part 2, please? Is this feasible?
Through the presiding member, Mr. Gooch.
Thank you, and through the chair. Yes, it is feasible. It's something we can certainly explore going forward, but I will point out that there are designated parking zones currently in effect within the CBD.
So this is infrastructure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So my point is as well, my understanding is that this, if approved, this will be an extension that will take us well within, or beyond, sorry, I should say, the state government's conclusion of its review. Therefore, this should be the final trial. Therefore, any infrastructure put in place is secured, well, most likely secure for the future, if that makes sense. So I think the assurance is there. I don't think there's any suggestion, unless other people know otherwise, there's no suggestion that I know that the state government's going to turn around and ban commercial e-scooters in their review, thus, dumping any potential investor by the e-scooter operators or ourselves in creating these.
So we'll accept the amendment. We have a seconder. It lapses for the want of a seconder, I feel.
But we all supported this.
For purposes of debate,
Councillor Martin has seconded it.
All right. I actually thought this was something that almost every councillor has supported. I remember Councillor Kouros and others all talking about parking bays for many years now. So I'm hoping that I can convince you to support this. Okay. Anyway, I am supportive of the e-scooters. I'm not supportive of how they're being left around everywhere. I'm also not supportive of their use on footpaths. However, I am aware that the e-scooter operators themselves are actually advocating to the state government, or have advocated to the state government, that the e-scooters be used in bike lanes and, quote, local roads, and that they themselves, the e-scooter operators in eastern states, interstate, do actually have clearly marked, delineated parking zones, thus docking bays, as one might call them, thus stopping the current situation that we have, where they're littered all over the city of CBD. So I think this is common sense. This is something, I'm just putting in writing what people have already been articulating. I acknowledge that it is being, quote-unquote, investigated, but I just want to say, I want this in writing, because this is something that we've been asking for years, and we're still not one step further. I acknowledge, Lord Mayor, what you've said around uncertainty going forward, but I think because we are in this final stretch, the certainty is there for ourselves and the operators, that if this were to pass, that they can go ahead and start create these docking bays. That's why I'm supporting it, and I do seek support.
From Councillor Kouros, and Councillor Ho also wishes to speak. Councillor Martin.
Thank you.
Sorry, can we? I just have.
Well, as the second Lord Mayor, my understanding is this is my only opportunity to speak to this motion, and I have seconded it for the purposes of allowing debate. However, my views are radically different to many of those expressed here tonight, and indeed I am somewhat disturbed that the extent of injuries in the community appears to be minimised. This council has heard deputations from, in my time, at least 4 or 5 people, some of whom were here telling us about serious injuries that they'd suffered. And I note that my colleague, Councillor Davis, suffered an injury to his mouth, which doesn't appear to be long-lasting, so I'm pleased for him in this instance. But some of the injuries have been almost disabling. And indeed, I had an email this morning from one such person who reminded me of the occasion that she came here to explain how she was injured, but more particularly how the then operator of the e-scooter, which collided with her, had not cooperated in any way to allow any payment or claim for compensation. And as a consequence, she was faced not only with a disability, but what were financially disabling debts. It is a sorry history. The scooter operators have been dragged kicking and screaming to the point where they would support the payment of compensation where those machines have injured others. And indeed, I have no doubt that they will have to be dragged kicking and screaming to a regulated environment if the regulations don't suit them. Our problem, though, as a council is, as Mr Pangello so eloquently explained, is that we are enabling, we are empowering these scooter operators to continue with the trial and putting at risk third parties by doing so. Lord Mayor...
Can I just ask how that relates to the designated parking bays?
Lord Mayor, I explained at the very beginning I would speak because this is the only opportunity under standing orders, or at least the meeting regulations, for me to speak. And I did so on the basis of allowing or facilitating debate. But look, Lord Mayor, I will not support the amendment. I will not support the original motion. I think it is a problem for this council to be doing so, and to suggest that the council should have any confidence in the state producing regulations and a framework that is in place by the middle of this year, much less the middle of next year, is pure fantasy. It is fantasy. It is not going to happen. These are, and if I may plagiarise your words, Lord Mayor, these are litter, and they should be removed from our streets, notwithstanding the fact that at some time, I think they will have an important part to play in personal mobility devices. But at this time, Lord Mayor, I'm not persuaded.
So thank you. There was a question from Councillor Kouros and then Councillor Ho. If you don't want a question, we could just move on.
I do, but, you know, sorry, I was just listening to Councillor Martin's debate, but I just had a question in regards to the amendment. How many parking bays have we already got in the City of Adelaide for this student? How many have we set up?
I can't answer. In the report.
Through the presiding member, Mr Gooch.
Thank you, and through the chair, I will have to take that on notice and confirm the number of parking bays that are currently in existence in the city.
But we do have quite a substantial amount.
Yes, we do.
Okay, and can I ask the mover of that amendment, whether, does he mean docking bays or does he actually mean parking bays? Because we already have parking bays.
He's only said parking bays.
That's right, that's what I'm confused about.
I think the motion says parking bays.
Apologies, I thought we were one and the same, but for the context, my intention was docking bays. Clearly delineated docking bays. Not just where we...
That it didn't make sense because we already have parking bays and we already had motions for parking bays which the administration have delivered according to the council, but I am assuming that this is docking bays because why are we having a variation, an amendment on something we've already done?
I think the way through this is to take it as a variation and call it a docking bay. Are we prepared to help the mover of the amendment make it a docking bay? With the leave of the meeting, we agree? Leaves being...
It's a different conversation for your administration.
Yes, so now it's a completely different issue because that's what I was responding to when I said that the operators could not do this without the certainty of a long-term licence or legislation. So now we'll go back, and I think this is a different answer. It was the answer I was trying to give. Mr Gooch.
Thank you, and through the chair, the introduction of docking bays is substantially more difficult than the introduction of more parking bays. It would require us to work closely with the operators to understand what fixed infrastructure they would require that would work with their particular scooters. It would also require us to run power provisions to locations through the CBD, and we would be needing to procure and install bespoke infrastructure that would come at some cost and time impost to council.
So therefore, is it feasible? Because we should not take something that's ultra vires. Is it feasible? Anything's feasible, I suppose.
Anything's feasible, but we need a willing partner who's prepared to invest. And I'd suggest that without the certainty of legislation, it's a big ask for your administration to convince the operators to invest in the docking stations.
Yeah, Deputy Lord Mayor. We'll wait for someone to vote against it then. Councillor Ho.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, I try to confirm that if I speak on this, do I still have a chance to speak on the substantive? Sorry. Yeah, I know. If I speak on this, do I? Because you didn't second it. Yes, you can. Okay, cool. Well, I think this. Put it this way. I mean, Sure. Well, firstly, I share my position. I do not support the amendment, and I do not support the original motion anyway. And members, 5 years ago in this chamber here, I was very, very happy to put both of my hands up to support the e-scooters trial to start with. And the next day of it, I actually jumped on the e-scooters, right from Festival Centre to Guja Street, where I actually worked. I like it, love it very much, until I got told off by a police officer because I have my children behind me. I didn't even know that I couldn't carry another person on the e-scooter. And anyway, 5 years trials, enough. Enough is enough. 5 years. Have you ever seen anything have a 5 years trial in City of Adelaide? If Frank Pangalo have not put enough keywords for you, 5 years. We leave a loophole over there for 5 years, and you have not got in trouble with it. We are lucky enough. All right? Indeed, when I heard that, now we have got insurance. Let me tell you, I'm frightened. I am not getting any slightly comfortable with it. Put it this way: if someone individual riding an e-scooter on our pedestrian, on our footpath, hit on someone, it's person to person. None of them have enough power to sue council, sue City of Adelaide. And now, with the involvement of another insurance company, you know what they will do? They will say, because of your footpath, the footpath you have not looked after caused the injury. They will turn around to sue us, to sue the council. And that is the trouble. And besides that, when Councillor David Ellis mentioned that the 14 deaths caused all by cars, let me tell you, Lord Mayor, you from a medical background, I from a medical background previously, some of these serious injury, even worse than death, it lasts forever. All right? So do not underestimate the serious injury that it caused to the people. And if this is still not enough for you, let me add a few more keywords for all of you guys. 5 years, when you see the e-scooters riding on our street, the capital city of South Australia, and when you can buy the personal owned e-scooters from good guys, imported from overseas, what information do you get? You think you can ride your own personal e-scooters on road legally. Sorry, I sit for another 2 minutes. And for those people who are actually riding their own personal own e-scooters on the road, whether or not it's in City of Adelaide or metropolitan area of Adelaide or even the rural areas in South Australia, they are not covered. They are not covered. They can ride on the speed around 50, 60k an hour, and they're not covered. Imagine that you see your kids riding those things on the street and they're not covered. How would you like to support these e-scooters, keep running like this? Yes, I heard that. The state government going to introduce the bill or whatsoever in July and probably get it passed in Parliament by the end of the year. Hello, I heard this 4 years ago. I heard this 4 years ago. If that's not enough, I actually tried to find out the minutes that, like, when we first discussed about this matter. All right, I couldn't find it. I haven't got enough time. I'm very happy to try to try to get the information out. Enough is enough. We should not. I run out of time.
We will have you back for the motion. How
okay,
about
thank
that? You. I think that we will ask the Deputy Lord Mayor to sum up, and we'll vote on the amendment.
I'll keep it quick. I do encourage you to support the amendment. I think it is something that we have been asking for quite some time. Clearly defined, delineated docking bays. I still have a lot of concerns about other aspects of e-scooters, although I do support them overall, but I acknowledge that the state government is dealing with, or should be dealing with a lot of that within its report. This is something we can do now that will provide within a reasonable time frame, that will provide a certain amount of relief for those people who are concerned around the accessibility issues created by e-scooters littered across pathways. So I do encourage my fellow members to support this. I think it is a good step forward. Thank you.
So I'll now move the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That's lost. A division's been called.
Members, a division has been called in relation to Part 2, Item 7.4 for the amendment. Please stand until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Siebentrip and Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I now go back to the motion. Is there any other... I did promise Councillor Ho he could have another crack of the cherry, or crack of the whip, sorry.
Thank you, members. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, thank you for giving me another chance to finish. I don't mind. I mean, if I'm the only man have to fight for it, I fight for it. All right?
No. I just think that Councillor Noon may well speak against it, but please have another go.
No problem. Members, City of Adelaide, we are the capital city of South Australia. We setting the example for the whole state to watch. We allow a trial for 5 years. We let e-scooters running on our street, our footpaths for 5 years without a proper legislation backing on these things. And people can buy the e-scooters from good guys. They can import it from overseas. And you think they will know that they can't use it on public roads? How many of them will know that they will not be able to use, they are not allowed to use the e-scooters on the public roads? We are misleading those people because we are allowing e-scooters riding on in the city, all right? And one last thing I'd like to mention. People, now in the city, I don't know what streets you normally go on. I actually constantly walk on Guja Street, Grove Street, around the Chinatown area, as you could imagine. Councillor Martin have sent some photos to me. I'll show you guys. I believe all of you receive, all right? These kind of things. Is this a good sign of the most livable city in the world? I doubt it. I doubt it. Well, before we deal with the car parking, Councillor Aylett, e-scooters parking everywhere on the street, mess. This is a mess. This is not a sign of a most livable city. Let's deal with it. Thank you.
I totally agree with Councillor Ho, and I totally agree with the Honourable Frank Pangello. And I just think that it is really interesting that the state government calls this council crazy when we adopt best practice governance processes. But this is an example of crazy to extend it to the extent that they actually have. And this is such a critical point. Unfortunately, I am reluctantly going to actually support this, and it really is reluctant because of what Councillor Elliott said. It's going to come back to us anyway. But at the end of the day, I totally agree with these two people, totally. I have a 92-year-old mother who is who was nearly knocked down by one of these scooters not so long ago. And I tell you what, if she was injured or if she was worse than that, I would be advocating for the demise of these scooters. And I'm sure that there's other people who have been in these situations that will feel this way. But having better, having bays where we actually can store them, I know what a good idea that was, and we still should actually pursue that in the budget, because I absolutely believe that that is a good idea. But we have to live with this because this is the way it is, and unfortunately, it's been in the making for 4 years, and it's going to come back to this council anyway. And it's not like they're a bad idea. They're actually probably a good idea if they were managed better. And to actually have to just wait for the state government again and again, and they just extend it, well, that is the definition of crazy.
Can I now ask if Councillor Elliott wanted to say, or did Councillor Kouros please address us?
Much passion in the room tonight, Lord Mayor. I understand my colleagues' concerns, and I share the same concerns in regards to the e-scooter. But as a hospitality business, family business owner, we struggle with e-scooters when with our outdoor dining, but we also struggle with bikes. So we have cyclists that are on footpath, we have scooters that are on the footpath, but unfortunately this is all the legislation set by the state government, and we have to be patient until this is put through for us to be able to work efficiently with the providers and have a docking parking bays, which I 100% agree that we do need. We do need that for obviously safety and litter reasons, but we cannot, as explained by the Lord Mayor so eloquently, very difficult to do right now. So voting against it is not that I do not want the docking parking stations. But in saying that, there are a lot of Councillor Elliott has been very eloquent in the way that he has delivered his argument, and I am swayed to the fact that there are a lot of other means of ways that we have safety implications to our people out in the street. Yes, we have a responsibility and we have a control right now with the scooters, but we also have a problems with those bikes on the footpath. Sorry, Councillor Elliott, with me walking, with walking on the footpath, and also for the hospitality venues when they are serving their customers outdoor dining. So there are a lot of layers to this, but I don't think stopping the trial, you're going to gain anything. You're actually not. We just need to push forward. We need to accept the recommendation for administration. We need to know that we are going to get to a resolution, hopefully by June, by the state government. We then be able to enter in a longer agreement with the providers to have better safety measures for the people of the City of Adelaide, and I'm hoping that happens pretty quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will sum up. Obviously, it's never ideal for us to have an ongoing rolling trial, but again, these are the circumstances we find ourselves in with the agenda of the state government. But again, it is promising to see that this is happening. It is going to be introduced later this year, and I think that's the important point here. The legislation is forthcoming. In fact, it's imminent. So it's really up to us to make sure that we're following through and delivering on our part of the deal. And that's continuing to work with the e-scooter companies to make sure that the enforcement is there from our side, from their side, working with SAPOL to make sure they're catching the people that are acting in a belligerent or negligent way. There has been a degree of forgiveness on their part in trying to actually test what the ecosystem looks like with these vehicles in our cities. We need to continue to advocate for the removal of e-scooters from our footpaths. As I have said, e-scooter riders do not want to be on our footpaths. Our footpaths are, in some parts, very well maintained, but there are some terrible parts of this city, and the footpaths themselves are a major hazard to pedestrians just as much as people trying to use them on e-bikes and e-scooters. And as someone who does ride a bike regularly and I would say frequently hires an e-scooter to plug the gaps in our appalling public transport network, I don't want to be on the footpath on my bike. I don't want to be on the footpath on my e-scooter. And the vast majority of other people don't want them, don't want to be using them there either. It is up to us, it is up to this chamber, and it is up to the next chamber to make sure that we're actually delivering that infrastructure for those people to be safely riding away from the footpath. I hope, and as each time I've spoken on this, this is a call to action to actually follow through with our sustainability requirements, our accessibility requirements, our transport requirements, to provide those spaces so that we don't have to deal with belligerent riders on the footpath knocking over someone's grandmother, or for someone to have to suffer life-changing injuries, or to have to deal with uninterested companies to deal with insurance. We have to provide the physical space for that to happen. Again, I hope that my colleagues will continue to advocate with me to make that happen, and I share the concerns, but I want to see physical change in this city, as well as legislative and regulatory change to make it all actually work, rather than just complaining that the trial is unending and that nothing has changed yet from the state government. We need to be the leaders in this case as well, and we need to come to the table and be mature and pragmatic about it.
Thank you, Councillor. So let's move that motion. We'll do it on block, 1 or 2 together. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. A division, I think, has been called. Did someone call a division?
Councillor Martin.
Yes. A division has been called.
Members, a division has been called on item 7.4. Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Couros, Councillor Lee, Councillor Siebentroop, Councillor Giles, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Thank you.
So that's been carried. Can I just apologise to those trying with some difficulty to follow this online? We've jumped around quite a bit, but we're going to go back to item 12 on our agenda now. This is the recommendation of the City Finance and Governance Committee, and there are 6 parts. Could I just ask the leave of the meeting if we could move 7.1 and recommendation 1 and 6, because I think they're the uncontentious ones. Is that 7.1?
Lord Mayor, I move that the entire lot be put. I move that the motion be put in block.
Well, we haven't got a motion before the chair at the moment. We have to have a motion, sorry. Can we have a motion before the chair, which is either en bloc or serially? En bloc, Councillor. Let's discuss. Are you going to move all the amendments together? I think that it's not possible for us to take multiple amendments to all of the parts unless we do it.
Lord Mayor, I'd like to move the motion be put. Procedural.
Sorry, I just think we're getting out of control here. We have to be fair to people. Can I just make sure we know what we're doing? Councillor Couros has a series of amendments. There's been a procedural motion that the motion be put, and that's been seconded. So unfortunately, I have to take that now.
So all items from 7.1 to... Sorry, I need to understand what that is, Lord Mayor. I'm not very clear. The 7.1?
That's what? En bloc.
So Lord Mayor, just so I'm clear, the procedural motion for it to be put is for 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5 and 7.6.
It is.
And so I'm unable to move any amendments for 7.2, 7.3, 7.4 and 7.5. I have been gagged. Is that correct?
Can you just stop speaking? I agree it is not fair to take all en bloc, but I'm just trying to work out how procedurally I can manage this. Can you just give me a moment? I might call an adjournment for 5 minutes while I work out how to deal with it. So can I move the leave of the meeting to have an adjournment for 5 minutes? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. if you would be happy to move 7.1 and 7.6, because I thought they were the non-contentious issues. Moved by Councillor Giles, seconded by Councillor Siebentrit. Is there any debate on those? Councillor Kouros. So if there's no dissenting view to those items or any commentary?
Sorry, was that 7.1 and 7.6?
Yes. No, just 7.1 and 7.6, because I think they were the uncontroversial matters. Unless there's a view we'd like to debate them, all those in favour? All those against, that's carried. And Councillor Davis, were you voting against that? So, a division's been called. All those in favour?
Members, a division has been called on item 7.1 and 7.6. Please stand in favour of the motion until your names have been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Ho, Councillor Lee, Councillor Siebentrit, Councillor Giles, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Martin and Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Thank you.
So 7.2 now. Moved by Councillor Kouros. Amended motion, yes. Oh, Councillor. I think that is enough to make us lose the will to live. Now, have you got a seconder? Councillor Ho? Oh, gosh. It is quite a complicated series of amendments. One wonders if it might be... Amendment. So this has certain implications. If it's a section 41, does that get payment? So you're now moving a motion that will set up a committee that will require somebody to be remunerated. Seconder with Councillor Ho.
Lord Mayor, may I, under the circumstances, and given your reference then to a remunerated committee, could you please explain, before we begin the discussion, the meaning of your reference then?
Well, a Section 41 committee
would have a chair who would receive a chair's allowance.
Would have a chair who would receive a chair's allowance. And I think that...
It's an investigation, Lord Mayor. It's not actually to establish straight away, and there's a reason for it. And we can discuss that.
So this is an investigation that would then recycle back to the committee. Okay. Is there anybody want to speak against this motion? Well, yes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I have a series of mini amendments to the items before us, and I did send it along to governance, and I was expecting a reply back so then I could circulate it with the members. Unfortunately, governance were very busy today and didn't get back to me. I have been working, discussing with them over Monday and today, and I came back to this format in order to... I had a series of questions. So I do apologise to the elected members that I'm detailing it in all at once, but if they want to want the item to defer to discuss further, I'm happy for it to come back to committee. I'm happy to do that. But what I'm putting forward, Lord Mayor, is an investigation to the establishment of a Civic Recognition Committee pursuant to Section 41 of the Local Government Act. Currently, what we have before us is actually removing the Civic Recognition Working Group, which only has the Lord Mayor and the CEO. Now, this is not this is not a reflection on you, Lord Mayor. I am not saying that you're unable to have these conversations directly with the CEO, but what I'm asking is that these are very important matters that come before the council, and we need to have transparency and over these matters. I'm also asking to retain the Civic Recognition Working Group until we investigate the establishment of the committee, which is in the detail as per the first item that we approved on the 24th of February 2020. We have done guidelines in 25th of February 2020, and then we've done a policy that will look a draft policy that is there for tonight. All very confusing, Lord Mayor, but I'm asking it for it to be consolidated into an investigation for a committee. I'm also looking to legislate and incorporate the function of such a committee similar to those in the Civic Recognition Operating Guidelines adopted at Council on the 24th of February 2020, and remove all references to decisions are of the Lord Mayor in consultation with the CEO. And also, I have on the draft policy on page 12 and 13, we have the words "are encouraged to robe." I want that to be replaced mandatory to wear the robe at those particular circumstances, which is the swearing-in ceremony, Australian citizenship ceremony, Colonel Light ceremony, official call upon the Governor, special events, royal visits and state and city birthday celebrations, freedom of entry and all the formalities in regards and the occasions that are to that, only onto that. I'm not asking for councillors to wear the robe into council. I'm not asking them to wear the robe at all civic duties, just those very poignant moments in which I feel that we need to have respect to the ceremonies and traditions that we have in this institution. And I believe that those items there are where the robe has its place in regards to the history of the City of Adelaide. And I've got on page 10 of the policy to add eligibility criteria to add F upon council resolution. There shouldn't be complex changes. I know there are a particular councillor that doesn't want to wear the robe, but I think what we need to understand is that this institution is not about us, it's about the people. And we are elected here by the people, and we should show that respect.
I just have a question for administration. Prior to this policy potentially being adopted, or the original or the variation, is it currently compulsory or mandatory, sorry, for elected members to wear robes?
My understanding is it's not compulsory, it's recommended or encouraged, and I would not be keen to spend my time disciplining members of council about wearing gowns.
My concern, and I will speak to it briefly, my concern then is the current status quo is that it's a recommendation, but the councillor's motion is to, in fact, mandate that or to enforce that, which, in my opinion, is quite draconian. I don't think it's appropriate for councillors to be mandating what other councillors wear. I think that is part of a kind of, too much control. Almost. Yeah, it's a very dangerous slope to be going down. So I'm unsure what the objective of that is. Look, I think the original motion recommendation has merit. I don't support this amendment. I appreciate the time that Councillor Couros has put into this motion. Apologies, tongue slip. But I just don't think that it is relevant or pertinent to the operation of council going forward. And with that, I will be opposing and voting against the amendment and supporting the original.
functions of a committee would be similar to operating guidelines. I think that may not be. I think that this is looking a bit like a camel, and it's cobbled together. I think it's quite difficult to grasp all the elements of it. But Councillor Noon.
Refer this to a committee?
You could move an amendment to defer this whole item, or you
because
could
there's just too much information that we're being given at the 11th hour, and I think it's inappropriate to actually expect us to actually pass this.
We could just help you craft something which might be this item be referred back to the City Finance and Governance Committee. So that's moved by Councillor Noon, and it's seconded by Councillor Siebentrit. Have we got the wording correct? So can we just get the wording of all of the items? Is that the whole amendment? Okay, sorry, we're just going to tidy up the wording. And so that was seconded by Councillor Siebentrit. Is there any further debate on that? Can we just put that motion? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you unanimously. Thank you, members. Go, we'd move again. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for your conciliatory attitude to that, Councillor. Or is someone moving 7.3 as it is?
Seconder.
Is that seconded? Seconded by Councillor Abraham Zadeh. Councillor?
Oh, I can speak to that. I'm just looking over it, with the following change on page 2 of the policy. It's in regards to obviously the flags and banners policy. And there was some wording in the policy in which says on page 2, the deletion of the following, request to lower government flags as a sign of mourning in the event of the death of a local citizen or person of significance in the City of Adelaide, with a subject to the protocols set up by the Australian Government and or the South Australia Department and Cabinet. All requests are be considered by the CEO in consultation with the Lord Mayor and replaced with council will only lower the flags at the request of the state and the Australian Government. Now, from my understanding, and then the other amendment is adopts the guidelines and protocols outlined in the Australian National Flag Protocols for the Australian flag and flag flying guidelines as per the Department of Premier Cabinet for the state flag. So what I'm basically asking for, Lord Mayor, and I think it was advised by the CEO that and I was trying to capture that, and I did get support from governance in trying to capture what my intent is. And in regards to the flag, the CEO mentioned in the committee that the flag can be flown at half-mast at the request of the state government, the federal government, and community request. And I don't believe that we should be veering off from the protocols of the flags as they stand from the Australian national flag protocols and our state flags. And I think if we're going to end up having numerous amount of community requests to put out regarding our flags, we're going to be inundated with a political, a lot of political discussion, as we did with lighting up the town hall. And we need to leave the flags as they are in regards to the protocols set out by the Australian government and the state government.
So the amendment has a seconder. Can I remind you that one of the problems with this was that the 2020 policy was out of date or improperly enacted. So one of the things that's important we recognise here is that we have to regularise our policy. I'm not blaming anyone in this room because I don't know how that occurred, but clearly there was an inconsistency in 2020 with the policy. So a significant amount of this motion, the fundamental motion, is to tidy up the policy which was not properly revoked. Yes, please do.
Through the presiding member, the amended motion is clear, provided the intent is clear. The consequence of the proposed replacement limits council being able to lower flags to the request of the state or Commonwealth government. Well, that's why I've asked to clarify, because in the wording in that form would prevent council from lowering the flag to recognise any other consequence other than a direction of the...
I worked with governments regarding my intent, and that is what I was told which way to word it. If there is another way to capture the intent, I'm happy to do so. But what I'm requesting is that we adopt the guidelines in regards to the flag as per the protocols set out by the Australian government and state government, and not upon community request.
So, Councillor Martin.
The community request stays with the town hall. I'm not disputing that. I'm not taking that away. I just think the flags shouldn't be part of that.
I'm not following you, Councillor.
Look, Lord Mayor, I wonder if I can...
Sorry,
I'm
Councillor
sorry,
Martin.
I was asked to speak by the Lord Mayor. Please allow
I
me.
hadn't finished my questioning. He needed to capture my intent.
Give Councillor Martin the call, but were you still speaking?
Yes, because CEO
I'm
was
sorry, Councillor Martin.
asking my intent regarding the flag, and he mentioned in the committee meeting that the flag can be lowered upon community request, and that's the part that I was concerned about. And I asked at governance, where is it stating that in the policy? And that's where they told me that it's stated. And I'm confused as to what is not captured here, if that's what my intent was.
So, through the presiding member, all I'm seeking to clarify, if there are circumstances other than a request or direction from the state or Australian government, what do you have the appetite for? So, an example might be the passing of a former Lord Mayor or Councillor, the passing of a Ghana elder. The wording of the resolution before the chamber limits it to a direction from the state or Australian government and provides no discretion to the council.
Excuse me, Councillor Davis, can you stop waving your finger?
I'm just so excited by what the acting CEO just said.
I really think it's disrespectful. Please, just sit down and stop acting in that manner. Sorry.
CEO, that currently our policy does not have the ability to lower the flag at community request?
Or any discretion?
So does that mean that our policy at the moment needs to be changed because we cannot lower the flag at community request? So we have to amend the motion, amend the policy so we can include community request?
Through the presiding member, the draft policy before the chamber this evening.
No, I'm talking about the draft. I'm talking about the previous policy that we've had.
We didn't have a legitimate policy in place.
We did.
I remind you that if you read the report, it says that in 2020, administration incorrectly considered that the flags and banners policy had been rescinded and replaced with the flag and banners operating guideline.
Exactly.
As the policy was a council policy, only council had the authority to revoke the policy. So we did not have a valid policy.
But we had a policy as per the Australian national flag protocols that we followed.
It was not a valid policy because we hadn't gone through the process correctly. It's in the report.
Well, I'm going to move forward from this one because that's absolutely very confusing. But I am saying correct.
Excuse me, Councillor, it's not confusing. It's in the report, paragraph 5 to 7.
But there was a policy. We had a guideline in regards to our flag, and you're saying that we didn't, but we did. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to move on. What I'm saying, Lord Mayor, is that, correct, CEO, I am saying upon community request, we should not be lowering that flag unless it is a request from the Australian national flag, Australian government and the state government. It is a national item. It's not ours. Unless we want to lower the council flag, if we had one, then sure. But I'm talking about the Australian flag.
I think you're carrying on debating and...
No, I'm clarifying his answer, his question.
I think the answer may not be the answer you want, but it was his answer, and there's no point haranguing.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I'm clarifying
point of order.
The CEO's question. He asked me if my intent...
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
I think... Sorry.
I'm just very confused about where we are in this debate. Has the motion been moved?
The amendment has been... Sorry, the motion has been moved as amended by Councillor Kouros. It has been seconded by Councillor Abrahimzadeh, I apologise, and this is now the motion before the chamber.
Speaking to the
I
motion?
think Councillor Kouros was asking a question, but she didn't like the answer, and she's asking...
The administration had an issue, was saying...
Sorry, Councillor Davis, you haven't got the call.
But
Councillor Davis, you don't have the call. The Councillor Martin has the call.
But she hasn't spoken. Point of order.
Lord Mayor, may I ask you to consider Regulation 23 in relation to the behaviour of...
I think you're referring to Regulation 29.
I have a point of order.
Regulation 29, I beg your pardon.
I think that if we're going to... Regulation 29...
Lord Mayor, the behaviour of the councillor, as he is now standing without a call...
I have a point of order.
Arguing with me...
No, I think...
...is an illustration of the disorderly conduct, and I move that Regulation 29 is invoked.
I have a point of order.
Now, can you sit down, Councillor Davis? A point of order has been called, and the point of order is that Councillor Davis is behaving improperly. Was that?
No, I have a point of order.
Councillor Davis, I'm not asking you to speak. Councillor Martin was inferring that you were behaving improperly and in a disorderly manner. Was that the inference? It seems to me that you have been acting in a disruptive manner. Would you like to give a personal explanation?
Yeah, that's complete rubbish. What happened is...
You might not like
Sorry,
my ruling,
I'm speaking.
But it's no need to be insulting.
I'm just speaking.
It's no need to be insulting.
If I could speak to the...
This is a personal explanation.
Yeah, and so if I could not be interrupted, that would be great. I think interrupting somebody else is disorderly conduct. From what my understanding was, and I was trying to assist, I'm giving my explanation now, Your Worship. My understanding was that the CEO was suggesting to Councillor Kouros that the motion and that her intent wasn't in line with what she was trying to achieve. Councillor Kouros then tried to explain her intent to the acting CEO. Councillor Kouros, as far as I can see, hasn't spoken to the motion yet, and we've moved on to the rest of it, and that whole process was simply about clarifying it. My issue, and trying to bring attention to the chair, was that Councillor Kouros was rather clarifying what the administration's interpretation was of that motion, and I thought it was unfair of you to move on without giving Councillor Kouros the opportunity to speak to the motion while she was having questions of the administration to clarify her thing. So my point of order, which I would like to raise, was that Councillor Couros hasn't been given the opportunity to speak to the motion as she's entitled to as a mover of this motion.
Councillor Couros spoke when she moved the motion originally, and she'd risen to ask a question. I'm of the view that in terms of Regulation 29, I should ask you to leave while the committee votes on the matter.
What needs to happen is that elected member.
We'll call you back when we've voted on the matter.
Lord Mayor, look, may I raise a procedural matter? On his way out the door, the councillor...
Excuse me, Councillor Couros, could you just sit down, because I can't listen to two people simultaneously. Councillor Martin has the call, and I'd like to ask Councillor Martin if he wishes to move a motion that Regulation 29 has been breached by behaving improperly in the council chamber.
Yes, Lord Mayor. I would also like to speak to the action of the chamber in respect of the behaviour of the councillor.
And that's seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor.
And I wish to ask the meeting to consider asking Councillor Davis to not return to the meeting at all. His behaviour throughout the whole evening has been similar. But moreover, after you asked him to leave, politely and within your authority, he leant towards me and said, "You coward." Now, this is just appalling behaviour, and it indicates that Councillor Davis is going to continue to ignore what are reasonable instructions and requests from the chair. And I honestly believe that if this chamber wants to ensure that there is reasonable conduct in here at all times, that they endorse this, that they ask Councillor Davis to not return to the chamber this evening.
So I believe that the process for us, number 29, section 29, is that the council has to now vote. They can have a debate on whether we believe that Councillor Davis has contravened Regulation 29. There's a seconder, there's a room for debate now. I have that motion moved, and then it can be decided whether he's censured or suspended. So the first step will be to take a vote on whether or not he has contravened that part of the Act. So is there any further debate? That you're the seconder.
Thank you. As a seconder, I'd like to confirm what Councillor Martin said on the way out. In addition to interrupting both the Lord Mayor and his fellow councillors, the councillor in question on his way out called Councillor Martin a coward, which I thought was quite a shocking turn. I acknowledge, however, that's probably not what we're discussing. We are discussing specifically the interruptions, which were quite evident to all. I think this council needs to take a strong position on this. We have seen, unfortunately, such negative behaviours continue throughout the last just over a year, and I think if we don't take a strong position when it is evident that such behaviour is forthcoming, then we are enabling that behaviour going forward. So I encourage you to support this resolution and yes, take the next step.
Of defending myself? Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm actually just speaking in regards to this is going to aggravate the harmony of this council. I think we need to be reflective on our behaviours in total and everyone take responsibility for themselves. And I think it's unfortunate that we've gotten to a point where this is being played out like we are in high school. And that maybe with one person's behaviour comes a reason for their reaction. So it takes two to tango, Lord Mayor. So we need to reflect on our own behaviours in regards to someone else's behaviour.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. Look, that's appalling to be suggesting that there was a provocation for that behaviour. That was not what was said, and
I think there was no
I do
provocation.
ask the councillor to retract that.
Councillor Ho.
Lord Mayor, sorry, I wasn't in the room, so I didn't even know what happened. Can I not voting?
I'm sorry, I wasn't aware whether you were in the room or not. I apologise. So I think that we all ought to be careful, Councillor Couros, and going back to the point that was made by Councillor Martin, I don't think we should in any way blame people.
If Councillor Martin took offence to that, that's not my intent. My intent is to say that our own behaviours should be also checked.
So we are all in agreement that we want to behave better and the chamber should be better conducted and we should conduct ourselves with more grace. So, Councillor Elliott, sorry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just briefly, I agree with the position being put forward that he not return to the meeting. I think this behaviour has not only just escalated tonight, but it has been consistent through the entire term of this council. And he is the only member that I can recall who has openly stated that he will not abide by sections of the Code of Behaviour for Meeting Procedures when changes were introduced at the end of last year. So there is clear intent that he has no interest in holding himself to the same behavioural standards of the rest of the chamber.
Thank you. So we have not used this provision previously, or I haven't, and I understand that we have to now take a vote to determine whether the contravention has occurred. If it has occurred, we will then take another, and it's agreed that it has occurred. The next vote will be on whether the councillor should be censured or suspended for part of the meeting or for the whole meeting. So can I ask people to vote on whether the contravention has occurred? So all those in favour? Against? Councillor Ho. Sorry? I'm afraid you still have to vote. Can I recommend that you vote against it, as you're not certain? It's just you will have contravened the Act, and I don't wish you to have contravened the Act. So I'll take the vote again. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. And now there is an opportunity for someone to move that the contravention either should result in a censure or a suspension, and you should name the period, whether it's for just this item or the remainder of the meeting. Councillor Martin.
Lord Mayor, I would like to move the remainder of the meeting. And the reason I do so is because the first option requires the chamber to refrain from voting for a period of.
No, that's an 86(6)(a).
Okay.
I'm sorry, 86(6)(a) requires us not to vote while the council is out of the chamber. This one is not at the behest of the presiding member. I could make a resolution on 86(6)(a) as a presiding member. A 29 requires a decision by council, and once a decision has been made, you are able to send the member from the chamber, and we can proceed when in his absence.
All right. In those circumstances, Lord Mayor, I would move then that it would be for 15 minutes.
For how long? 15 minutes. Okay. So, and seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor. Is there any debate on that? No. In that case, I'll put the motion, which is to suspend Councillor Davis for contravention of Regulation 29 of the Local Government Regulations 2013, and that Councillor Davis be suspended for 15 minutes from the moment this passes. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. That's carried. I'm sorry, we'll set the alarm.
But someone needs to tell him.
Can I make a request?
I need to call him back into the meeting in order to tell him of our decision. Thank you. You'll understand that the Regulation 29 is not invoked very often, so that we need to do it by the book. No, I'm just idly explaining what we're doing. to inform him of his suspension for 15 minutes? I'm seeking advice. I'm not sure that it's allowable to carry on if he's not been informed. The problem is that with Councillor Davis out of the room and his handbag still here, he's unaware of our decision. The only reason I say he needs to be informed is that if he returns in contravention of our decision, then there's a penalty to be paid and a fine, and it would be inequitable if he were fined through his own ignorance. Reply to my text.
He's on his way back.
I understand he's returning. I apologise, members.
Lord Mayor, sorry, as a way forward, could we take a 5-minute recess?
With the leave of the meeting, we'll suspend meeting procedures. Can I have an agreement on that? Meeting procedures suspended. Thank you. That's carried.
get hold of, and I did speak to governance. I do have some concerns, and I would appreciate if my colleagues can help support my concerns through a committee.
I think that you're not in a position to defer it now, and I think we should put it to the vote.
Against? I'd like to speak against this.
I think that the council has summed up. So the problem is that if the amended motion is voted against, there'll be nothing before the floor, and we'll have to move a motion without notice, or we will. I can't see that we can manage this as the motion has been amended on moving. So the only thing, I don't think we can even take another amendment now she's summed up. So it will have to be all those in favour and all those against. That's lost. Thank you. A division's been called.
Members, a division has been called in relation to the motion before you. Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Ho and Councillor Abrahimzadeh and Councillor Kouros. Thank you.
Sorry? So there's nothing before.
Lord Mayor.
So can they take another motion? No, but can you give it back down?
Lord Mayor.
Just one moment. Why can't we just take another motion as it was?
I'm trying to move the motion back notice now to the original motion.
Can we take this motion?
Disappeared. It's for you, sir.
Failure to foreshadow, but I'm just trying to determine if the original motion can now be put. Is there any reason why that can't be moved as a motion? Councillor.
If it makes the if it makes it easier, I'm happy to move it as a motion without notice, with your indulgence and indulgence of the room right now.
If the members will support that at the end of the evening, we'll do that.
So I move recommendation 3, 7.3, as originally presented, as a motion without notice. I'm seeking a seconder.
I don't know that we can have a motion without notice at this point in the agenda, can we? We can do it at any time, so thank you.
In that case, I'll seek a seconder.
Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Martin. So is there any debate on it now? No. Councillor Kouros.
Yes, Lord Mayor, I'm rising to speak against this motion. I think what I was trying to achieve is to have actual boundaries in regards to our national flags and our Australian flag and our state flag. What this recommendation does is that it allows for community request to lower our flags. So therefore, that you, Lord Mayor, have complete control now in regards to the flag and when it can be lowered. If a community request comes through to you, it does not come through council at all. It is not something that we as a council decide on. It is solely a decision upon your decision. And is that incorrect, Lord Mayor?
Absolutely incorrect, because now the power goes to the CEO in consultation.
So the CEO has the power to lower the flag?
It's in consultation. It's not complete power for the Lord Mayor.
Okay, sorry, Lord Mayor. It's the CEO has the power only to lower the flag upon a community request.
The whole policy is now removed from the Lord Mayor's office.
So it's removed from your office and given full power to the CEO. Is that right, Lord Mayor?
No, not full powers, in consultation.
In consultation with whom? Sorry.
With the Lord Mayor.
With the Lord Mayor, right. Point taken, Lord Mayor.
So I think that... Yes, please.
I'd like to support this motion for the main reason to say that We've been talking about the Australian flag. Nobody is mentioning the Aboriginal flag, and let's be honest, this is what this is about. And I want to read to you what our Reconciliation Committee minutes say from a meeting following the public media issues that were raised by some councillors around the lowering of the Aboriginal flag. Yvonne Aegis addressed the committee to express disappointment regarding the media coverage surrounding the flying of the Aboriginal flag at half-mast after the referendum. Yvonne Aegis expressed her disappointment to the negative media coverage that resulted in noting her support for the approach to fly the flag at half-mast and apologised to the Lord Mayor for the public controversy caused by the decision. Yvonne Aegis has extended an invitation to council members to attend future reconciliation committees. So this is why it's really important to actually have an ability for us to consult in the community in the broader sense, particularly in this place where we have, where we stand on Kaurna land that's never been ceded, and at a time when Kaurna people have got land rights over this country. I think we owe it to them and to other members of the community at different times to be able to take control of this issue and to lower the flag if necessary, and that the CEO is the best person to deal with that, because the CEO is in consultation with the Mayor, because then we can have an approachable method for members of the community, and also maybe to remember previous people in our community and respect them, without having for them to have to come to a formal forum like this.
Point of clarification, Lord Mayor. Sorry, I need
There's
to clarify
no such thing
my
as
position.
a point of clarification.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. Point of order. I think there needs to be a point of order. No, a point of order. My motion is not directed to the Aboriginal flag. That was not part of my motion. That was not part of my discussion.
Okay. And
my
I think
discussion
that
is solely on the Australian
Lord
flag.
Mayor, this is debate across
and that
the
was
chamber.
not my intent.
There's no need to keep on. I think that we have aerated this enough. Let's have the motion put and move on. And is there any need to sum up?
No, but I have a quick question for the administration as well, which I think will help push us along as well. It is my understanding, can the administration clarify that nothing in here precludes elected members from being able to move a motion in regards to a civic item, should it be a flag or what have you, and that being supported by a majority of council, so council does not lose its voice either. That is my question to the administration.
I think nothing precludes anybody asking anything, to be frank. It's a very accommodating policy, and it's effectively not very much different from the last one that failed to be enshrined. So unless there's any more summed up, all those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. We'll go on to item 4. Council member complaints policy.
Lord Mayor,
I think with 4 we might have someone to move the substantive policy, Councillor Noon. Because
sorry, I had my hand up, Lord Mayor.
I know you did, but I'm just saying we got into a pickle last time. I think we'll have Councillor Noon move, seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor, and ask Councillor Noon to speak.
Very briefly, I took my time over the weekend and read this word by word with my governance hat on and all my experience in this area, and I think it's an excellent document now, and it actually captures all of our comments and all of our issues that we actually had in committee. So I actually thank the administration, Alana, for pulling all this together, and I think it's a document that makes loads of sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And your seconder? Reserves the right. Speaking against the motion, Councillor Couros, or do you want an
I would have
amendment?
preferred a deferral to actually have spoken about this and given an overview of what this actually means. What this actually means that there's no transparency, Lord Mayor, and there is actually no minutes, no nothing, no details in regards to the complaints that come through. What some councils are doing is that they're having a council member complaints committee, and this this is something that they're investigating and they're working within the council to have. What this basically does is give the Lord Mayor, I believe in my understanding, their discretion in regards to the complaint, whether it goes through or not. And while, Lord Mayor, I trust you completely and you are a very logical person, down the track we may not have that. And we know that factions are very strong within council, and you do not know where the Lord Mayor will be aligned with in the next council, so or the future councils. So, Lord Mayor, while I'm grateful that you're in the seat at the moment and this policy will be adhered to quite respectfully, I have got really big concerns regarding the future of how this will be used by future Lord Mayors. Thank you,
Councillor. I do try to be fair and be equally discipline and irritate members across the spectrum of factions and groupings. Unless there's any further debate, shall we put this motion? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Division's been called. When we've had a division, we will then call an extension because it's 8:30.
Members, a division has been called in relation to item 7.4. Please stand until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Davis, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Lee, Councillor Steventrip, Councillor Giles, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Martin. Thank you.
I now seek leave of the meeting to extend this meeting for another hour. Is that, or do I just
until the end?
Until the end of the meeting. Oh, leave granted.
Lord Mayor, I think the regulations suggest until 10:30. Is that correct?
Well, one hopes not. Thank you. All those in favour of an extension? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. And now we have a 7.5, which is the complaints for the operating guidelines of the Chief Executive, moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Steventrip. Any debate? If not, all those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. I'm sorry? I thought you voted against it. I'll take the vote again. All those in favour? All those against? A division's been called.
Members, a division has been called on item 7.5. Please stand until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Lee, Councillor Steventrip, Councillor Giles, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Martin. Thank you.
That was carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 13. And we've already debated 7.4, which was the e-scooter, item 4. So there are another 4 items. One, the capital project update, the Adelaide City Connector bus, public realm condition audits and draft buildings asset management. Is there any appetite for debating them separately or altogether, Councillor Elliott?
Just as committee chair, I'm happy to move all items from the committee en bloc.
Thank you. The residual 4 en bloc. Do you want to have an amendment or just to debate it? Okay. So can I suggest that we just move the other items and then move on to that one? Would seek leave? Councillor Elliott's happy with that? Yes, happy with that, Lord Mayor. So Councillor Elliott and his seconder, who was Deputy Lord Mayor. So we'll move item 1, 3 and 5 en bloc. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. And thank you. Now we'll have, again, Councillor Elliott moving item 2, which is the connector bus, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. And would you like to speak to that, Councillor Elliott, or let Councillor Hove speak?
No, I made my views clear in the committee and I'm happy to reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor Hove.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and firstly apologise that I wasn't able to...
Can I just explain that's the time limit that we have excluded Councillor Davis. We'll invite him back in, but I think we can continue.
No problem, Lord Mayor. Thank you, members. Look, I am a strong supporter for the connected bus, and this has been on my campaign brochure for my 2018 election and my 2022 election. I love this. It's not just for the economic benefits, but I understand that the connected bus is there for the social benefits. All right, I make it very clear that, hence, like Councillor Giles, don't get panicked. All right, but a couple of years ago, when I first heard the report about because at the time the state government tried to get rid of their funding, on the basis of, at the time, based on the data, it cost $7 per person per trip. And that actually quite costly. And now, understand Councillor Martin actually, moved like option 3, which we're going to spend some money to promote the connected bus. So I only want either undertaking or something over there from the administration that in 6 months' time or 3 months' time, bring back the data and see whether or not we have some sort of like improvements in terms of like how many more people actually use the connected bus. Because like, if putting more money in advertising and promoting the connected bus does not solve the problem, then we might have to look at other solutions to promote the connected bus, to get more people understand the connected bus actually doing them a favor. All right? So understand that, the connected bus is not over there for the economic benefits, but more like for social benefits. My point here is we can't just show all the love to a small group of people, but get all the others to share the cost. All right, that's all I want to say, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
The debate. Shall we put that motion to the chamber? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. That's the end of item 13. 14. There's nil. Lord Mayor's reports. I'll be brief. Can I just congratulate members for supporting the West End activation, because I think it's been very successful on our side of the city. I think it's been an extraordinary achievement, and I think our investment has paid off, and I look forward to the final wash-up of the results of the whole fringe. I should remind members that there are 1,000 acts in our council area. We're blessed by the fringe this year. We have 200 venues, and the month-long activity will hopefully spread economic benefit, not just to the West End, but also to Hutt Street and North Adelaide. And please do. The lunar celebrations have been supported by many members, and I just would have commended the opportunity to attend a conference that was held at the University of South Australia with visiting professionals from housing, geography, economics, discussing housing. I attended only one of the talks, but there was a civic reception in the town hall. And in future, when we have civic receptions and conferences, I will try to warn councillors so that if they wish to attend those conferences, they might do so, because sometimes they're quite interesting. Can I move my report to be received? Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Siebentritt. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you, members. Reports from councillors. I'd like you to note the council members' activities. Can someone move this motion? Councillor Martin, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. Is there any debate on that? Or any personal reports? No? If not, Councillor.
Just a very quick one, just to say, on Wednesday, 14th of February, I received an invite to represent the City of Adelaide at the Helpman Academy Graduate Exhibition, and it was a wonderful event. There was a lot of displays and a very finely curated exhibit, and it was a great opportunity to see the thriving art of our city, and to see the City of Adelaide's role within that. So it was a great opportunity to meet a lot of people within the City of Adelaide and within that particular sector, the arts industry, and to represent the City of Adelaide in that role as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. The report be received and as printed. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. And now we're moving on to motions on notice. We're up to 17.2 already, so if we could scroll down 17.2 is Councillor Martin's motion related to community coordinators, and it's seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I draw members' attention to the nature of the motion, and the nature of the motion is to include in the discussion papers for the 24-25 business plan the matter at hand. That is to say, nobody is making a decision in relation to this. It is merely being placed on the agenda for discussion. And the purpose of the discussion is to support our community centres. Members will recall that a discussion paper was prepared by the administration and presented to a recent committee at which the role of community centres was clearly defined. That is, to provide that indoor recreation space, to provide a venue for an ageing population, people with disability, spaces for cultural development and access to technology and meeting places, and places of refuge in the event of disasters and emergencies. During the course of the discussion, it was revealed by the administration that, based on its own strategic assessment, our community centres are currently understaffed by 1.6 full-time equivalent per centre, 4.8 full-time equivalent in total, compared to the metropolitan average. And libraries also are understaffed by 0.6 full-time equivalent per centre, or 1.8 full-time equivalent in total, compared to the metropolitan average in Adelaide. And this reduction in staff, which occurred during the term of the last council, for reasons that remain unknown to me, has considerably reduced the service available to our ratepayers. Indeed, the report prepared by our staff notes that our community centres are not functioning to the effect that they were intended to function, simply because they're understaffed. And as a consequence, programming and resources are reduced, and the cost per visit increases rather than decreases. Moreover, there is that issue of the service provided to the community. Now, I note that during this time, when the previous council axed community centre staff, they also provided what were called SPOCs, special point of contacts for precincts throughout the city, which is a great idea and which is working efficiently for business. But I would contend that correspondingly our contact with community is decreasing, such that not only are our community centres under-resourced. May I have a moment longer? Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Not only are they functioning to less than capacity and not servicing the community to the extent that they were, so too are our libraries. Our libraries, according to the report presented to Council, are functioning at levels less than optimum compared to other libraries throughout the state of South Australia and certainly interstate. And indeed, there is an argument that some of our libraries ought to be given the opportunity to open for longer hours. Incidentally, while visitations are declining, undoubtedly because of the opening hours and the reduction in those, the extent of borrowings, that is, of publications and of other audio-visual materials, is increasing. But nevertheless, our administration is of the view that we can and should do better. Now, whether that is to the extent of the number of full-time positions identified in the report and what we can afford is the matter to be discussed during the budget process. I am not suggesting that we should move to that position. I'm merely suggesting that this is an important matter that ought to be discussed during the budget process and a decision reached by the elected members. And on that basis, I ask the members to endorse at least putting it on the agenda.
So is there anybody speaking against putting this on the budget list? Councillor Couros.
Lord Mayor, but I think I'd like to clarify a few of the commentary from the Councillor
Is it personal explanation?
No, actually, just comment on the commentary. The fact that he...
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
No, excuse me, Lord Mayor, I need to clarify.
Point of order.
I have a point
Items
of order.
weren't axed.
I have a point of order.
Point of order. I think that Councillor Couros could have made a point of order if she'd wanted to. So we're calling upon...
It wasn't, Lord Mayor, I just want to talk about the position in regards to the reason why the staff levels were reduced. I'm in support of this motion.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I do have a point of order.
Is your point of order, Councillor Elliott?
The member has already flagged that she doesn't intend to speak to the content of the motion, which is the reason that we have an opportunity to speak. It's speaking about the decisions of a previous council, which is not before us for consideration.
I am speaking in favour of the motion, and the reason why I'm speaking in favour of the motion is because times have changed, Lord Mayor. We no longer have COVID, which is the reason why staff were reduced last term of council in these sectors. And yes, we need to revisit that, and we need to revisit the support that is required because in a post-COVID time. So we have moved through that, and we need to visit that back into our budget, and we need to be mindful of the fact that there were a lot of decisions that were made last term of council due to the COVID situation.
Thank you,
Sadly,
Councillor.
Lord Mayor, that some decisions were very hard to make, and I would challenge any councillor to understand that these decisions are completely difficult. So if they tell me that they're not, then that's uncalled for. So the fact is, Lord Mayor, I'm in support, but we have to understand the reasons why. We need to bring it back to the level that we're required to give back to the community.
Thank you. I think we're all in furious agreement then. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Councillor Martin.
Yes, Lord Mayor. Look, this motion is not dissimilar to the last one in that it is asking members merely to place on the agenda for discussion the notion that the city is capable of purchasing...
Who seconded this? No one seconded.
I thought I heard someone do that.
Councillor Noon seconded.
It is simply putting on the agenda the possibility that the council may own its own libraries and community centres. I should say at the outset, Lord Mayor, I'm always somewhat embarrassed but greatly pleased that the City of Adelaide purchased the community centre in North Adelaide for the North Adelaide community and owns the community centre and the library. They are our property. And as a consequence, the council makes all manner of decisions about the way in which the property is used. Sadly, that doesn't apply to any other community centre or any library. All of them are leased and at substantial rents. Now, Lord Mayor, confidentiality forbids me from talking about the amounts involved, but it will come as no surprise to councillors that we are talking about an expenditure over the past decade of millions of dollars. And in the case of our city library, which is leased, I would speculate that the amount of money that has been paid in rent almost comes somewhere close to the amount that the council received when it sold those premises for redevelopment. It seems to me that that's an equation that ought to upset all of the councillors in this room. We are paying needlessly for real estate that the city has a capacity to own and which in the longer term, long after we're all gone, in the longer term will bring benefits to the city because there will be no debt to pay off and there will be no further lease payments. But moreover, it adds to the council's asset base. Instead of paying a landlord, we are actually investing in the future of the city by growing its asset base and ensuring that our communities have ownership of their community centres and libraries. It is a principle that ought to have been adopted long ago by a council, but it wasn't. And I'm asking that we put that on the agenda for discussion, not for agreement, for discussion about how a strategy might be formulated. Now, I note from the administration's notes that this is a matter that has some currency, and particularly in view of the fact that there are lease renewals due in the near future. I ask members to support this. It is, in my view, a reasonable approach.
Being one of the only councillors that was here last term, along with Councillor Martin, I believe there were, I'm sure there were many motions last term of council requesting this. Do we not still have them on the table?
Moved a motion about a community centre, but I think we would have to check.
Don't we have that in train to actually work towards a community centre?
I can't answer that. But if we have this motion, we'll get it will get back on the agenda.
Repeating ourselves each time, Lord Mayor, because I know that this was last term of council's objective.
But if it hasn't been achieved, we probably need to reiterate it's still a policy.
Look, I can help you, Lord Mayor, in respect of this. There is no policy. I have been here a lot longer than any councillor, and there is no policy in respect to libraries and community centres. There is, however, an agreed policy in relation to a Southwest Community Centre, which was moved by the Deputy Lord Mayor, and which requires the council to seek out for a budget amount, which is also confidential, the purchase of a property. That has not occurred. This differs in that it is an approach on the basis of policy to all libraries and to all community centres.
Might I take that as you summing up and then move this motion? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My motion refers to what I believe is a wicked problem that the council has about the development of our city. And I'm referring to the area of our city that I believe has got the most potential and also the biggest challenges at the moment. And what this motion actually is a one step towards pulling together the wisdom and the experience of people who have dealt with this issue over many years, to get them together to help us with this work, and also to be champions for this part of the city. It's a little bit of a different way of doing things, but I do believe that the council way often of doing things is to develop a plan, then put it out for consultation, and in that way we don't actually gather the subtleties and the wisdom that people have from being in the city in a period of time. And I'm talking about the western part of the city, and I'm not talking about a street, and I'm not talking about a small precinct. I'm actually talking about probably the area from the north of Goodger Street, north of Goodger Street, west of Morford Street, and right up to Hindley Street area. So it's that area now which has got significantly numbers of high-rise apartments already. It intends to have many more people living in high-rise apartments. It's got a large student population. There's young people there. There's been concerns about about the vibe of the place and about there not being any much support for people to go and actually spend their money in that part of the city. There's very few green spaces in that part of the city. There's also real problems in terms of our infrastructure there because of it's been let lie, and also there's now great big empty spaces of undeveloped land that will sit undeveloped for periods of time while development processes go through with some proposed new developments. So instead of dealing with one thing at a time as we go, about approvals or an issue that happens on a street or whatever, I think it's a really important thing to do is package all that whole area up and have a think about what do we want that to look like, what's going to be the vibe, how do we deal with that in the city, and in line with our strategic plan, which says that we want to create bold and interesting communities. We've got some amazing opportunities there to do something really quite different and innovative, but I know that the people around this room probably can't do it, probably the people within the council can't do it all on our own. We actually need some champions who know that area really well to assist us with that work. So this motion is about asking administration to bring back some ideas of how we can engage more actively. Sorry, I will need more time. Yeah. How we can engage more actively with our community that lives, works, or has lived and worked in the area for a period of time, including people like, for example, and these aren't the people necessarily, but these types of people in the West the West End Association who have been trying to get entertainment into that part of the city. People like Jason, who runs Imprints and has done for 40 to 50 years on Hindley Street, a beautiful bookshop that has got its own culture. People who are involved in the community housing area and in Common Ground, and who are dealing with the whole area of social services and have set up their own community centre in that area of the city without any support from us. And people in the international student population, because it would be great if we could make that a thriving area, in my view, for younger people and place that younger people want to hang out and do stuff in. So, sorry about going on and on, but what I want to do with this motion is to actually engage our community from that area who have knowledge in that area in a way of helping us develop something that sits alongside the city plan, sits alongside our climate strategy, sits alongside our community development strategy, and pulls all that together in a way that they can throw up ideas and bring stuff to us that we can really change that part of the city to make it a magnificent area that people will want to live, work and play in.
So, thank you. Councillor Noon, do you wish to second?
Just briefly, I've lived in every corner of the city of Adelaide, and now I live in the West area.
I think 5 out of 12 do.
What was that?
5 out of 12 of us do.
Yeah, 5 out of 12. So, I know the differences because I've lived, for the past 38 years in the city, so all around the place. So I know the differences in what is happening in the different areas, and it's great to see that the West has been activated over the fringe period, and you can see what's happening with the central market with Market 1. It's just fantastic, and I can see this all happening. I think that this aligns, and I'd be interested to ask through the Lord Mayor to administration if this aligns and assists the city plan, because I can imagine that this would assist in planning that whole area, which is what we're doing with the city plan. We're planning the city. And your opinion on this?
The problem is that we're requesting them to look at something and come back in April. We can't do both. We can't ask their opinion now.
Okay, that's fine.
Isn't it better that they do the work?
Okay,
sorry.
But I just don't want to. I don't want this to feel like they're doubling up because they're already
through the presiding member. I'd refer the councillor to items 2 and 3 of the administration comments. I think the answer is that what's proposed here is complementary to what we're trying to do with the city plan.
What I was hoping you would say.
Thank you. So, Councillor Kouros, and then we'll put it to the vote.
I'm intrigued to understand how this advisory group would differ from the community and business advisory groups currently operating the West End, the Adelaide West End Association, the South West City Community Association, the Hindley Street Stakeholders Reference Group, and the West End Village Association. So there's...
I think the South West Community Centre Association has actually folded.
Oh, okay.
It no longer exists.
Right,
And the other organisations are wedded, I think, to separate patches, and therefore there's no cohesive group across the whole area.
Right. So then would it be, could I amend this to include an investigation for the northern area, because as an advisory group, because I just think that it would be.
Maybe do this for the
I'm sorry.
Well, I think there's 3 councillors that are represented for the south. There's minus the southwest. There's there's about 3 other associations which help within the southwest part of the city. We have one organisation, the North Adelaide Precinct Association. We have issues in the north that we've got Melbourne Street's a different sector that runs differently to the O'Connell Street. I just would like to amend the motion to include an investigation. This is an investigation, correct? Into a proposal for the northern part of the city. Especially now that we've had a changing landscape.
Sorry, I need a clarification. Northern part of the city, do you mean
North Adelaide?
North Adelaide.
Yes.
Point of order. I believe that's in contradiction to the motion, because this motion is about the west of the city.
Can I just interpret it from the chair, because obviously it's not my motion. I understand this is driven by the fact that North Adelaide is not going to have massive infill development and massive.
Adelaide O'Connell. We also.
No, councillor. It's the whole of the western side of the city is a development site in a different way from North Adelaide. So I interpret this as being city plan and how to introduce another 10,000 residents almost in that zone. Isn't that the purpose of it?
So reducing. I'm sorry, Lord Mayor, I'm just failing to understand how everything would work with 3 councillors already representing the South.
It's
not a councillor committee.
Trying to understand
it's a community.
When there's associations, 3 associations already. I'm happy to support an investigation, but I would love to be also supported North Adelaide, who does not have any fringe events down in the north.
Thank you. So unless there's any further comments to that, I think that Councillor may have summed up. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to Councillor Noon, who... Sorry? Sorry, Councillor Giles, I missed one. Sturt Street.
Sorry.
That's
Thank
quite
you.
a simple issue.
Lord Mayor, I apologise. I need to declare a conflict of interest.
Oh, right.
I have a relative who has raised this very matter with members of staff, and I believe that my conflict is material, so I will leave the room during the course of this motion.
I'll take your word, and we'll record a material conflict. It's a very straightforward motion. I'm sure we wouldn't support it.
Yeah, it is a very. It's. I just want to say that this has been an issue that people of that businesses and residents of Sturt Street have lobbied strongly. Me as a councillor who lives close by to that area, but as an area council, but I also know that it's been an issue raised with Councillor Civic and also with Councillor Snape, and also. That's it, really. Maybe Councillor Davis, I'm not quite sure. But it's at Sturt Street between King William and Morpeth Street. It's a bit of a mess in terms of parking. I know that it refers to the replacement parking meters contracts already being resolved, but it seems to me a good opportunity before those are put in that street that we deal with some of these issues. I'll just do some quick examples. One of them is that at the moment there are 2-hour paid parking meters in Sturt Street in that area. If you continue down and you go into Halifax Street, you've got this beautiful street full of cafes, greenery in the centre of the centre. It's very slow-moving traffic. People are wandering around. Small businesses are thriving. People are living alongside business in a beautiful way. It's I think one of the most successful streets in our city. And you go across King William Street and it's you've got an empty street most of the days. So most days there are no cars at all in that street and no people in that street. And yet there's some businesses really trying to make it there, and there's new businesses opening up all the time but then closing down. So we've got Cafe Troppo, for example, when people go to Cafe Troppo, they have to pay an additional parking fee to get a cup of coffee, whereas if they go around the corner to a Kingdom for a Horse, they don't. So there's some issues around that. The other issue that has come up that I've been talked to about is that there's a number of community services in the area that have shift changeovers, and they're quite tricky organisations, so they have to have a double up when they swap their shifts in order to keep the people on their shifts safe. And yet a number of them have had to pay parking for a 10-minute or a half an hour swap over instead of being able to use the free parking because there's very little in that area. So I'm not asking for a free-for-all. I'm asking for a feasibility study to have a look at how we can clean up that part of the city so that we can actually have some free but timed parking, and we can force the timing in order to be able to deal with a whole lot of those issues that are now becoming a bit of an issue in that part of the street.
So I think there's an extensive parking study that's been carried out, and there's a lot of data on this. So was someone seconding it? I was remiss. Councillor Noon seconded. Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Noon? Councillor Elliott? And then Councillor Davis.
Yes, probably won't surprise anyone that I'm probably not going to support this motion, because, as the Lord Mayor has already alluded, this has been explored before, and when it was trialled, I believe it was 5 years ago, I'm willing to be corrected, it ended up being filled up with people who were commuting into the city, weren't contributing to local businesses, and then would come out for the 2-hour car shuffle, move their cars around, and people were then not able to access the local businesses that the businesses were crying out for them to come and park at. It failed. We have the data that demonstrated it didn't work. Again, I'm willing to be corrected on the findings of that report. The last reading of the last time I read that report, it indicated that this was not an approach that works. And frankly, I think we need to start moving past the idea that car parking is going to be the saviour of all of our city businesses, and that the lack thereof or the lack of free parking is actually the problem. It's the fact that we have this idea ingrained into everything we do in our business for the City of Adelaide that nothing can operate without a car. And as Councillor Giles quite rightly pointed out, there is some free parking nearby, and most people being able-bodied are quite easily able to walk across if they do want to. But really, the problem is not. Yeah, look, I'm happy to concede the point that our street environment is not friendly to many people with disabilities, vision impairments, mobility impairments. But parking, making it free, making it extended hours all the time, has demonstrated that all it does is open up to long-term parking for people that aren't contributing to those businesses, and deprives people from the opportunity of actually accessing it to purchase a coffee in the first place.
Yeah, nah, not what Councillor Elliott said. Councillor Giles is spot on. I've spent a lot of time in that area door knocking and going through those businesses. It's basically vacant. The whole street is empty. There's no cars there, and we're charging fees there, right? So it's exactly what you said in terms of having a 2-hour car parking zone, implementing parking controls. That's absolutely the appropriate thing to do. We do that around the city in various locations. Car parking, the reason why we put car parking fees isn't to generate revenue, hopefully. It's to allocate a scarce resource so that local businesses can actually get customers there. And you're quite right, you go on the other side and it's free. So we have lots of free areas around the city. What Councillor Giles is saying is 100% true. It's something I campaigned on in that area, particularly, so I'm really glad that Councillor Giles has brought this to the chamber, and I fully support everything she said.
Councillor Kouros, and then put it to the vote unless...
I just have a few questions, Lord Mayor, just so I can understand. Halifax Street, that's not all free, correct? That's paid parking? 2-hour limit, but there's paid and there's a combination between paid and free, is that right? So it's Halifax Street's all paid?
I'm not able to answer that because I never drove
I would say, there is... You shocked me there.
Can we just ask the administration, does anybody know in the administration?
Through the chair, thank you. We'll find out and come back to you.
Okay.
Well, from my...
can I just say I've never driven there in parked, so I don't know.
Well, I think it's half free, half not. No, it's not. It's paid parking down the
anyway,
where the
can
bike
I just
shop
suggest,
is.
rather than debating it across the chamber,
can I suggest a way forward?
We haven't got all the data, but this is only looking for this to be investigated.
Well, I just followed Carrington
it's
Street.
It's not going to be a major decision. Councillor, carry on.
Is Carrington Street paid or free?
It's another question I can't answer.
Well, it's just hard to make a decision to say that the parking is the issue for the street. I mean, I know the western side of the city because I worked there for 20 years. I own property there.
Councillor,
and I don't,
feasibility study.
Well, I'm happy to vote for a feasibility, but I'm like with Councillor Elliott. I'm not 100% sure if that's the sole answer, but I'm happy to vote for it, Lord Mayor, because.
So I think that there's data we don't have. Have you forgot any more information, Mark?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Through the chair, I can confirm that both Halifax and Carrington are free.
Thank you. They're free. I think that we're not going to get any clearer. I'm going to vote. I think we should take this to the vote. Do you want to sum up, Councillor?
I've just got a question undertaking, please.
Sorry.
I'd like to have a question undertaken from administration that is part of this, which I think is an excellent idea, and I do support Councillor. I'd like to ask an undertaking that we also consider investigating a half-and-half option, which is something that I actually discussed with some
I don't know what a
owners.
half-and-half option is.
So in this scenario, if I can explain then, the north side of Sturt Street, the entire north side would remain paid parking, and then the entire southern side would be free. And in effect, what you would have then is the north side would become almost like an overflow, so that there's still parking available for those who need it, but then do have to pay when inevitably the bottom half fills up. I think that is. I'm just asking for it undertaken as part of the investigation.
To contain all options. Are you summing up, Councillor Giles?
Sum up. Just to address some of the issues, most of the parking, metered parking, is from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m, so it's a very long period of time currently, and I do not believe, I totally respect where Councillor Elliott's coming from, but I think the world's changed, and the post-COVID nature of who's coming to the city and doing what has really made a difference on Sturt Street. And what we're seeing, if anyone walks down there during the day, it's empty, absolutely empty of anyone during the daytime. At 6 o'clock, it fills up with cars for people to go to Goodger Street, basically, to eat, which is really nice. But if you're running a lunchtime or an early morning business, that's incredibly difficult because there's no one coming to your shop. And I know it's tricky, and I'm not a big car and parking person myself, but I'm doing this out of the goodwill, as a follow-up to the goodwill of the people that have been trying to get this issue looked at by the council, and it's a feasibility study so that we can have another discussion with them.
So all those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to note that 17.6 is now ultra vires, and so we will discard it. Can we retrieve Councillor Martin from wherever he is, please? And there are some questions on notice. One of them that I drew your attention to earlier, but otherwise it's 19.1 to 19.3 for you to note, which was Kirby plastic trials and East Parklands fencing. We will now move on to motions without notice, no. Questions without notice, no. And an exclusion of the public, item 21. Would someone please move an exclusion clause? Councillor Elliott is moving confidentiality clause for 22, which is the confidential recommendation of the Audit and Risk Committee. That's number 22. Seconded by Councillor Noon. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. And I'll move a separate confidentiality item for the City Governance and Finance, moved by Councillor Siebentritt, seconded by Councillor Lee. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. I took it that Councillor Davis was voting for that. Thank you. Now we've moved the